Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, getting better. My name is Ben Hansen. I'm not alone on this very episode. I have one Jeff Marchiafava as my wingman.
That's me.
Let's go paint the town red. I'm joined by one Leo Vader.
The tech guy.
Kyle Hilliard's here.
I don't know my nickname.
Yeah, who actually invited him? And then we have Haley McLean.
I'm in the barrel you guys push into the bank.
That's right. No one will see this coming. Hey, bank, here's a barrel.
Here's the rum you ordered.
On this episode of the podcast, we have so much to cover. It's damn near overflowing. We're going to be talking about highlights from the PlayStation State of Play. There's some fun reveals packed in there. Janet Garcia is going to be joining us in the back half of the show to unpack all that and then answer some great questions submitted over there on Patreon. We're going to be checking back in, ding dong, it's us again, to talk about Eternal Strands, because if you haven't been following us, last time we left it, it was me playing hours in the beginning and enjoying it, Jeffem going whole hog and begging the rest of the world to get into it. And as we talked about it, Leo's eyebrow was raising and said, wait, could I get into Eternal Strands? What happens next? Stay tuned. In like 30 minutes, you'll find out.
If you're happy and you know Eternal Strands.
Nice.
Thank you. It was in my head. I had to say it.
This is a bonus. She rides in a barrel and she sings. But
like a hobbit.
We're also talking about Avowed from Obsidian. That is the big talker in the beginning. But before we get to that, we want to say thank you for clicking on this, for subscribing to MinnMax's YouTube channel, or checking us out in your favorite podcast app, where obviously this show is free. But we also have a special something if you want to make it not free, which is another way of saying if you want to help support independent games and media, if you have enjoyed MinnMax's content lately, if you had any moment within the last month where you thought, MinnMax, I think they're doing it well. I think they're on the right track.
Eternal Strands song.
That's right. It could have been that moment right there.
Worth like $3.
If you jump in.
MinnMax is doing so great, but I hate how free this is.
That's it. Boy, do we have a solution for you. You can support us on Patreon. And if you support us before February 17th, this coming Monday, we will DM you a Steam code for Cryptmaster, which is one of Janet's favorite games from 2024. Definitely an overlooked gem. It's sitting at overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. It is a text-based dungeon crawler, but not like it's text fueled for a visual dungeon crawler is probably a better way to put that. But it's an awesome indie game from last year that could use some more love. And we will just DM you a Steam code on Patreon if you jump in as a new supporter before this coming Monday. When we hit 5,700 paid supporters, we're out of codes. So check our Patreon page. If we're below that, we will send you that code for Cryptmaster. I was just looking the other day because we message every new supporter on Patreon. And a lot of people are always like, oh, this is automated. No, this is me sending it. We have sent over 10,000 messages on Patreon. Like, it's a lot of back and forth. So jump in there, say hi to me, and I'll DM you that code personally for Cryptmaster, which is a cool ass game.
Have you ever had someone want to just get a message from you and that's why they join?
So they say, I don't want anything from MinnMax. I just wanted one message and then I'll take just my money elsewhere.
Sweet message.
I mean, you're welcome to do that. It kind of creeps me out, but
it's basically like Cameo, right?
I guess it is.
Oh my God,
yeah.
it's like really inexpensive Cameo.
Hey, Cameo, Elements of Power, Elements, those are apparent in Avowed, the new RPG from
you landed the hell out of that plane.
From Obsidian, everybody. This is a fun journey where we're recording this before the review embargo's up, so we're all flying a little bit blind. Let me tell you my journey with Avowed, because I'm curious where everybody else is at. But we did that rapid fire interview for Avowed, and it did well, kind of broke out of our bubble, which is lovely. And it went up, and I started just getting a trickle of messages from people in the industry, like a Jason Schreier or Danny O'Dwyer, who are like, dude, Avowed freaking rules. I'm so glad you did the interview. I was like, wait, what? It does? Like, I was fully expecting this game to be like a 76 on Metacritic with a heart of gold. Like, that is exactly what I was envisioning. And then I just feel like more and more people are like, dude, are you playing Avowed? Avowed is blowing my mind. It has just been such a fun surprise out of nowhere to be like, whoa, they did it. They landed this completely. Haley, have you been playing the most Avowed?
Yeah, I'm like 40 hours in.
Jesus, that's awesome. Yeah. Where's everybody else at hours-wise for Avowed here? I'm like 5 hours in, so probably early.
Like in that zone, I think 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
13. I've done every inch of the first zone. I'm about to go to the next one.
Nice.
I think I'm at 25.
Okay,
Nice.
so we need to work out the ratio where you can only talk for an exact ratio for how much you played.
Interesting.
That makes sense.
so,
Stop talking. Use up your
okay.
time.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, Haley, take the floor. What do you think of Avowed?
Oh, that seems mean that I'm going into my talk being mean to you. It's great. It's really scratching that Skyrim itch, as weird of a sentence as that is. Oopsie, Obsidian's better at making Bethesda games than Bethesda. Whoopsie.
That's the takeaway?
It's so, I know in your rapid fire, it's like, oh, is this just like a Skyrim? Like, it's like, oh, it's our own thing. It's so much of Skyrim it's not that derivative of Skyrim yet. All the pieces are there that you're gonna feel like you're playing Skyrim, but also something new, which I kind of love. The writing's quite good. You know, I've played better stories, but it's good enough that I'm gonna see the ending. Like, I'm very intrigued, and especially later on, it kind of gets better and better. But it's really fun.
I'm very into the world in a way, and there's a lot to unpack with Avowed here. But like, you know, it's based on Pillars of Eternity. It's in that same world, you know. So if you played Pillars 1 and 2, you're at home. But it is a smooth entry point if you haven't played either of the Pillars games. But I'm sure I knew this at some point, but it wasn't until like doing research for that rapid fire that I was kind of reading plot summaries for the Pillars games and like, wait, is this world super cool? It's all just about souls and reincarnation and gods. And I'm so glad that Avowed is also just leaning heavily into that aspect of, you know, Obsidian got to make their own kickstarted world back and released it in 2015 as Pillars of Eternity. And the world that they built is just a spiritual, fascinating fantasy world, which I don't think I was bracing for how cool that was going to be.
It's like, what if you knew what happened when you died? Like, what would the world be like? It's like, that's a cool premise to
huge
build it
implications to commit to that.
Yeah.
I so many fantasy settings are kind of interchangeable, at least at a glance. Of, you know, you've got the rules of the goblins and whatever you are used to seeing. And this, I was really surprised how undeniable it is that it's its own universe. Just looking around at just the different vistas, just the colors they have, and you are confused at what you're seeing. Like, you're not used to seeing these types of views in a fantasy game like this.
Yeah, even, you know, early on where it's like explaining, I think they have a note of like, here's what the Pillars of Eternity are. It's kind of basically the life stream from Final Fantasy VII if it was just a giant pillar of emerald stone that's bursting through the ground, and if you touch it, you kind of connect, and then after you die, the souls travel that. It's just that cool idea of like, okay, there's just going to be giant green crystals everywhere that are kind of like the life stream from Final Fantasy VII, that everything just has this spiritual undertone, which is so cool.
Right. And I think the thing that grabs people initially maybe is you see the player shooting a gun in this game and you go, are there guns in this? It's Skyrim with guns? And of course, it's not just guns. There's like all sorts of machinery and stuff. And yeah, like we're saying, with the way that ties into the spirituality, like the magic devices built from mechanical objects and regular electricity, like used to harness it, is all so fascinating to explore. It really feels like you're learning about a new cool place.
Yeah. So you've been bubbling behind the scenes, Leo. I see you tease in the Discord about like, I think this game frickin' rules. I mean, how are you feeling about it overall?
I'm super, super hot on it. Honestly, I don't think it is that Skyrim-y. Like, I came away kind of, you know, I went into it fully expecting, I know what Skyrim is, I know what this is.
Yeah.
But I've been impressed how moment to moment it does not feel like Skyrim, both in the tightness of the controls, which of course just comes with it being a newer game. You know, there's parkour and mantling, and the combat actually feels really good, which we'll talk about. Skyrim, like other Bethesda stuff, is a jack of all trades, master of none, crammed in everything. And when I got into this game expecting a big RPG, even though it's open zone rather than open world, I was still like, oh, I opened this chest in this dude's house right in front of me, didn't care. There's no stealing. Like, oh, this isn't going to be that refined of a experience, I guess. But then as you play more, it's like, okay, I get what they're going for. And having too many systems like that would feel like bloat in this, versus what it is more every inch of the zone you explore matters. Clearing the fog on the map is always worthwhile. Realizing I haven't been to this part, there's like a bespoke quest right there, or a chest to find and parkour path your way up to, or some kind of specific enemy encounter. It's like rewarding to just go around the edge and fill it out in a way that's something like Skyrim or most open world games, the map is just too big to do. Yeah. So it's kind of a very different feeling of exploring, and it makes it really rewarding.
It was a good game to go directly from Eternal Strands into, because I feel like it's the same kind of thing where it's like, this is by necessity a little more focused, but that focus really pays off in that, like, what they do very well. And I was super surprised, like, as soon as I heard the game was announced, I was like, okay, Obsidian, I like the Outer Worlds. They're doing their Skyrim thing. That sounds great. I'm sold on it. And then every time I saw gameplay of it, I was a little less sold.
Yeah.
Because like that combat looked pretty lame. And when I started, I don't know if did everyone get a mace as their first weapon?
No.
I don't know if that was like based on my character that I chose or something. Okay,
I got a dagger,
people did get different ones. But when I first got the mace, it did not feel super great. Like it's slow to swing if unless you're hitting a destructible box or base, like anything else that you hit, it just kind of makes a smudge. It doesn't feel very impactful. But then as soon as I started getting other weapons and started dual wielding stuff, I realized that like, even though it still may not look great from the outside, the combat feels really good, to the point where I started playing this game like I play every Skyrim game, where it's like, I'm just going to go around, steal stuff and try to avoid combat. And like, after a couple hours, I was happy to go in, like I was sneaking around bears and I was like, why am I sneaking? Like the combat is the part that I'm enjoying the most out of this.
Yeah.
And so I just started like fighting everything. I am surprised that like my build has been mostly arquebus based, like the ranged rifle.
Oh,
like,
weird.
The gun, it feels so lame to say, but like the guns feel really good in this. I'm so surprised that like, and it does the same thing that I loved in Eternal Strands, where ranged combat, there's no ammo. Like you don't have to worry. I don't have to craft arrows or like worry about finding ammo for my gun. It's all just balanced by how long it takes to reload and stuff. And I love that the thing that none of us knew, apparently, that there was no level scaling,
right?
Like makes combat so much more interesting and makes exploring so much more interesting, because you get into these situations where it's like, holy crap, like this is the first time I'm seeing an ogre and he is so much more powerful than me. And like, maybe I can hang with him and like, maybe I can take him out. But like that kind of feeling of like actual danger and that forces you to like use all of your abilities, and the abilities are really cool. Like you start unlocking some magic, and I love all the leveling up and like the different skills that you get, and having to actually use dodge in like a first person game. Like they made first person melee just feel super good. Probably better than any first-person melee-based game that I've played. It's just
interesting.
I would agree.
Very
with that.
impressive.
Yeah. That was the thing. I'm not as far as any of you guys, but like that was. Maybe I got lucky because my starting weapon was better, Jeffem. But literally the first time I swung it and broke a box, I was like, oh, this feels so much better than it looks. Because like every time like you said, every time you saw combat in trailers, I was like, ugh. First person, and then maybe it's because I was comparing it to Skyrim, where it's like the combat's like very secondary in that game and not that interesting, and like it was the thing that I was immediately surprised by, that I was like, this feels so much better than I expected it to. And then if you hold, at least on Xbox, if you hold down the right R3, you can switch to third person, and overall generally I prefer third person,
really,
just across the board. I always want to play in third person, but this, I found myself like, I was like, you know what? Actually, it plays and feels so much better in first person. Like, I'm not going to play in third person. It's like, I don't know. I was really surprised by how much I liked the combat. It really took me by surprise. Like, I kind of struggle with games where you like walk up to a character and you plant your feet, and then you kind of have just sort of a conversation where the camera just kind of goes back and forth. Like, I'm always going to kind of struggle with that a little bit and kind of wish I could click through the dialogue faster. But the combat is keeping me going for sure.
Yeah, it is just having that little burst, the little dash option. It goes so far. And then for me, it was like the first time of taking out the magic book and actually like opening up the book and using those spells. Like, this feels cool, just to get like that flamethrower going real quick. And then just having like a different equipment loadout ready to go, hitting Y on the controller, and I'm suddenly switching to it. Okay, now I'm just sword and board. Now I'm back to the magic. Like, that's a really cool hot pivot to do in the middle of combat.
The dual wielding is so genius. Like, who would have thought that dual wielding would be like one of the coolest things about this open world fantasy RPG? But there's a couple things, like shields and spellbooks are locked into your offhand. But besides that, almost everything can be kind of interchanged, and discovering those fun combos keeps it feeling really fresh. I've had like a shield in my left hand and a pistol in my right, so I can parry and then do like a charged pistol shot that slows down time.
Yeah.
Or the spell book in one hand and a flaming sword in the other, which being like a battle mage for the emperor. It's like a really badass suite of weapons to be using. But I also was like trying to figure out how can I not have a shield and still feel defended. Like I can just dash around a lot, but what can I do with my offhand that's not more interesting than a shield, but I still feel defended? And then I found this grimoire that it's kind of like it serves as your loadout of spells. The different grimoires have different spells in them, which I think is so interesting and makes them so fun to find. The one I found is really defensive in that I can make a shield for myself that lasts 20 seconds, which you can do and then switch to the other loadout and fight or whatever, which is really cool. And the other one is a grimoire snap, which is like you close this book, you slam it shut, and it causes this shockwave that knocks enemies back. So it becomes a defensive option that way to have in the left hand just slamming it shut. It's been feeling so cool.
Is it just the level scaling thing that I'm getting used to? But is this game harder than anybody expected? Am I just wandering into areas that I'm not ready for? And they're really handy of giving you like the skull and crossbones, different layers of it and levels for the quest that you're on and stuff like that. But I found a couple
I'm
areas
it challenging.
Okay,
I am.
Like
yeah, in a way that I like. Like I don't think it's too challenging, but I'm dying a bit more than I expected. There was like a mainline story that just kind of threw a boss at me in the middle of the city that I had to do like 2 or 3 times, and I was kind of enjoying. I was kind of relishing the challenge, but it surprised me because I did think,
right.
I mean, like maybe it's the Skyrim thing where it's like I just kind of thought I could just walk up to people and hit them with a sword like 6 or 7 times.
It's so right.
It's like no, that's not what this is.
It's so wild that it's the year 2025 and we've dropped the name Skyrim 14 times already in this conversation. It's just like, wow, Skyrim.
My daughter started playing it like a month ago randomly.
Oh yeah,
like so it's like on my mind. I've been seeing it in the background of my home.
Oh, funny. Yeah, but like early on. I found like a cool spider cave. Did you all go into that spider den and whatnot? And then I was in there and I was like, God, really having a tough time. And then it's like, oh, I can't fast travel out of here. Like there's no way to climb back up because you had to like jump down into the little water pool and stuff. Like, am I just hosed? I actually had to run into the situation of like, okay, there's the big spider boss. I'm going to take out the minions, get the good armor, and then I'm just going to try and sprint past this huge spider boss and try to get the hell out of the cave. And you can see that as a frustration of like, why can't I fast travel out of here? Even if there's no combat going on. But it's like, it added to this layer of tension that's like, oh yeah, this is a feeling we should have more in games of being scared of what's actually going on because I'm in a frickin' spider cave, you know?
And again, it's the skulls for difficulty versus like my level versus their level. It is just they're not labeled if they're your level. There's one skull if they're a little harder. There's 2 or 3 if they're way harder. And that's all I want to know. I don't want to be like worrying about the numbers too much beyond that. It's just enough to know, am I taking a risk by going to this encounter? And I still like will often do it. I'll just know to be more prepared.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say in the late game too, it's good at like you feel strong by this point, but you can still die sometimes. It's not like that's completely off the table now. It's like, oh, you know, they'll throw something really weirdly strong at you or something that's kind of strong but has 1,000 minions and you're like, oh crap, like those kind of situations. So it'll still kind of keep you on your toes and you won't feel really broken to go into the end game.
How is your enthusiasm throughout it here, Haley? Is it kind of the charm wears off for like the combat being like better than I expected, which I think is we're still kind of in that phase, a lot of us here?
No, the combat's really fun. Okay. Even like, and I've really just kind of struck to I have a grimoire with my really souped up wand that's essentially like a nuke every time I shoot someone with it. It feels so good. But what I've been doing is playing around with my secondary. So I had a sword and shield for a little bit, but I haven't spec'd too much into that, so I'm not very good at that. But then I did this side mission really late game that gave me this insane gun. So now it's like I use all my frozen spells so everyone's stuck still, and then I pull out this gun and I'm just like and just like one shot killing them all in the head. I'm like, I'm a god. And that's only something I learned how to do like 30 hours in. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah.
That's only something, you know, like I could have done that earlier, but I just never thought to. Like and you know, maybe I'll swap out the gun if I get a really cool other weapon sometimes. There's so much good loot that you never kind of feel like, I won't open this chest. Like you're always going to want to open the chest, even so many hours into it. There's always going to be something kind of good. And even if it's like, I'm not really running this, you're still going to put it, you'd be like, I got it for my collection. It just like feels good. The loot's super good in this. Right. And the story does ramp up a lot more later on. I was kind of lukewarm, mild on it at the start. I was like, all right, I have mushrooms on my head. I get it. And then by near the end, I'm like, everyone don't leave just because I made that really bad decision. I'm really sorry I made that bad. Like one of my favorite characters is in my team was like, I cannot believe you did that. I'm going to leave. And I had to rope him back from the edge. I was like, I'm really sorry. And I like actually felt bad, but I thought it was the right decision, but he just like disagreed with me morally. Obsidian's so good at that, right?
Yeah.
Here's two awful decisions. And you're like, oh, I guess this one. And then one of my teammates was like, yeah, I think that was right. One of them was like, that was pretty good. And the one I really liked, Kai, the character, was like, I cannot believe you. And I was like, I'm so and I really was scared he was going to leave.
Yeah, Kai is they chose correctly for the first companion you really get in the game. And it's like, I'm not a big fantasy guy in general. If it's a Final Fantasy, sign me up because it's just about done. But in general, it's like, I don't know about fantasy. But starting with your companion in this game being Kai, who is voiced by the same voice actor as Garrus, and it just sounds like Garrus from Mass Effect. And so like I am really being charmed by this game just for like, oh God, why does it remind me of my joyous times in Mass Effect? It's like I'm just running around and exploring with Garrus. Like it feels just like it's also a weird blue guy who sounds just like Garrus. This is everything I wanted.
He's a great character. He's very well written. I think in your rapid fire it was I'm sorry, I apologize, I forget her name, but she
Carrie
wrote
Patel.
him, right?
Yeah, the game director, Carrie,
cool.
she wrote him too, yeah.
He's great.
She did great. Yeah, very interesting character. It's so rare that the I came into this going, I expect good Obsidian writing, I expect good Obsidian choices, and everything else. Outer Worlds, totally enjoyed, but forgettable a bit. And it's really exceeded my expectations, and not just the writing kicking ass, but the combat being so fun and the loot being so rewarding. And those are kind of the three main tenets. Like, again, they're not going for a ton of filler to make it the biggest thing you've ever played, but just cycling between those three systems, those all paying off so big, it really does feel like a special game.
Yeah. And I also really like the crafting and upgrading system are really interesting because it's like, You just have these different tiers of like common and rare or whatever, but then each one you can level up to 3 times, and then you can bump out of that tier, but you have to start spending like exponentially more stuff. And it's like it has kept me like it has created this really satisfying loop where I actually do want to go 5 feet out of my way and grab that piece of ore or whatever, or like if I open up a chest and it's a chunk like soft wood. I need all the soft wood I can get to like upgrade my rifle, and I'm happy every time. There's hardwood too, Hanson, so don't give me that.
I'm not giving you any face. Move on.
You're giving me pervert faces, whatever. But it like that is super satisfying.
That's
and
just
then
his normal face, Jeff. He can't do anything about that.
His normal face is pervert face.
But then also like the skill trees are interesting. Like it's an obvious one to just have. Hey, when you aim a ranged weapon, it slows down time, and yet that's still one of the most awesome ones that you can get right off. But then I like that the Grimoire ones, like as you invest in those, you can just start using the spells without having to have the Grimoire in your hand, and you can just put them as like your quick abilities on the radial menu. Like those are super satisfying kind of upgrades, and it keeps making me want to get out there and like continue getting resources and doing those kind of upgrades. And it makes me excited every time that I get an ability point. There's always some point in, Skyrim where it's like, I have like 13 skill points. There's nothing I really want to put them in because it's all just kind of these incremental buffs. And here, like, I don't see that happening, at least in the near future.
That is my only complaint about it, is that I don't feel like I'm leveling up fast enough to get everything I want in this run, which is like, I'm sure not the way it's designed. It's designed to play different runs in different ways. But Haley, how do you feel later on? Do you feel like you have your path through the skill trees pretty carved out, or are you kind of lacking what you're trying to get to?
Like, and they're pretty forgiving in that you could just spend coins if you want to respec at any time, and it's not even that expensive. I think it costs like 1,500 coins if I wanted to respec, and I have 30,000 coins. That's nothing. Nice. No, it feels good. I definitely put a couple things in things I probably shouldn't have, but I've just been lazy and not gone and respec. But even then, it's like kind of balancing. Okay, yeah, I could do this and pay this point so that I don't have to use this grimoire anymore. But I don't mind using my left hand with the grimoire and then freeing that up to get the stamina boosting specs, or the thing that makes it so when I dash, it uses 25% less, like anything that kind of improves my mageness that might be under fighter or ranger things. It's like I'll go and spec into those. There's a bunch of fighter ones that's just straight up like you have more health now. So it's like, okay, I could unlock all my spells so I don't need the book anymore, but why don't I just keep the book and then buff up my health and speed and all this other stuff in these other territories so that I don't, it lets you sacrifice things and then like, yeah, I still have to hold my grimoire, but I got 5 extra awesome skills out of that, not choosing to do that instead.
But also upgrading the spell makes it so when you do use it out of the grimoire, it is a higher level than you have it. So the grimoire doesn't stop being useful, which I think is a really smart system.
That's really cool. And then also with like just straight up casting the wand, like even like you're just kind of shooting it out and it does like a little like burst. I then kind of made it so those on their own do so much freaking damage that sometimes I'm not even having time to do spells because I'm just like swung. And then I also spec'd it so that it bounces between everybody and also does additional stun. So if you happen to walk across like some really low level people, you'll shoot one little wand flick and it goes bing, bong, 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 bing, bing, and they're all like, ah, and then you just like hit them again with like a firebolt and they all die. It's like, oh, I did that because I chose those combos. It's so fun.
That's sweet.
It's funny to hang on the level scaling so much, but this is going to be a game people point to as like, that's why you don't do every level scaling, every enemy's level scaling with you, because as you're going back to fill out the map after you've kind of done it, you're like, I'm going to see what else I haven't done. It is so satisfying to go past places you maybe got killed at earlier or were too scared to even try and just be dominating.
Yeah, it's interesting in this game. Like the premise is you are a godlike, someone who's been touched by a god, but you don't know who the god is, which is a very good premise. And you're being sent to this wild continent on behalf of the Empire to try and understand it, tame it, understand this disease, all this fun stuff. But like, I was so intrigued even initially of like in the character creator of, God, it is some bold, weird fungal stuff. Because being this godlike, you just have like one of the options, just basically have a entire tree bark over your face like a shield, and then other ones like growing it all nasty. It's like my first instinct was like, well, I should try and minimize this and look like a human. And I'm like, no, this is the game. I need to go extreme with the whole godlike features, because then it is interesting having characters react to you, be like, oh God, what are you? Like you rarely get that feeling in a game, and I think it's really unique. Just like lean into what this game is doing well, which is you should look kind of like a freak. That's kind of the appeal of this game.
I made her a bit too cute. I kind of regret it. I even did her makeup to like look nice with her messed up ushers. And I was like, she should look like a freak. Every time I cussed her, I'm like, she looks really cute. And everyone's like, oh. Anyway, I'm like, damn it.
You blew it.
I also like story-wise, like you get there, you're on behalf of the Adir Empire, whatever it's called. But it's like everyone you meet is like, yeah, those guys are a bunch of assholes, man. And it's like the entire time you're like, are we the bad? Am I working for the bad guys? And like, how much do I want to actually help the bad guys? Because that seems like choices that you can make,
right?
And that has me infinitely more interested than just like, I'm the sole guy who shows up and I can do whatever I want. Like, kind of having a background that people are already reacting to and having that moral ambiguity is really enticing.
Totally. And in the character creator, there's a bunch of interesting backgrounds, and it was fun to pick one, the court augur, who's like the emperor's personal mage, essentially, who uses like subterfuge to help out and I don't know, political intrigue style stuff. And I was like, okay, let me go into this and play a little more of a nasty guy than I normally do. Like I'm normally just the nice guy who's nice to everyone. But this is like, knowing that backstory, having those interesting choices, having dialogue that's not just this will make them like you, this will make them hate you, dialogue choices that are kind of nuanced. It is so fun and fresh to be fully role-playing the character and getting to points where you're like, what would my character do about this? What would my character's reaction to this be? Having to like pause and think about that feels really cool.
That's what I've really loved about it so far is the choices. There's always one that I want to say. It's never like, I guess I'll pick this one. It's like, be nice, be the absolute biggest asshole of all time, or say nod politely. There's always like 3 or 4 extra ones. That's like, I understand what you're saying, but for me, it feels like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that is how it feels. It's very, they're so good at that, right? And the options to be a little bastard. I'm not being a little bastard. I'm too nice. I'm just being nice. But there's so many fun ones that I'm like, I'd like to do another run. There was one that really made me laugh, but essentially this guy was like, oh, like make sure you come back and buy from me in the future. Now it's like a funny quest where like he's not that good or whatever. And then the 2 options were will do and then lie. Will do. That's so fun. Like they're very cheeky. They're really good at writing that kind of stuff.
Maybe some people were worried about that idea of like, okay, it's based in the Pillars universe. I don't know if that means it's going to be like as clean of an on-ramp for new people and stuff. But like, I do think it's, as somebody who's kind of allergic to, here's a fantasy world map, let's walk you through the kingdoms, like it's going down smooth so far. I think they ease you in really well. And it turns out it is just a really helpful thing to have a lived in, active feeling world, to know that like there are 2 games before this. Some would say that, but it's like you're confident that like this lore is locked down. You know, there is a world that I'm discovering here, and the fact that those 2 games exist, I feel like help in the confidence of that. Of like that, they know what this world is. They know where this region is and what the species is that lives there. Like all that stuff, I just feel more confident in because of that, which I didn't expect.
So smart to not call it Pillars 3. Just it having a different name. I'm not in love with the name Avowed, but as long as it's not Pillars 3, it's like, that's so smart to me.
And in the dialogue, you can press a button to bring up the definitions of everything you're looking at, the proper nouns and stuff, which at the start of the game, you're doing every single line, or I was. That is so smart. It's something we've seen in indie games, but not necessarily games of this scale. And it's such an important feature for a world this complicated.
Acting like you didn't play and beat Final Fantasy 16.
I'm a good actor.
I've been enjoying my time with it. Number one complaint: these beetles that you fight early on in the game. Every time I fight them, I'm turning my head around because I think there's like a lion attacking me from somewhere else. Because the beetles like roar and grunt as if they're like huge lions and bears. It's like, these are just the beetles making these sounds? This can't be right. There has to be another thing.
I haven't worn headphones while I play it, so I haven't noticed that. They just sound crazy.
They sound
with headphones on?
Crazy. No, I'm not even wearing headphones. They're just belting out of the TV so loudly.
They're big.
I love that you're in love with this game, Haley and Leo. That is,
it's great.
Awesome to hear.
It's just let's go explore. Let's go poke around. Every single nook has something to find. You'll find a hidden nook, and then there's another nook in there. Like they do that everywhere. And you know how I'm the type of player that before I go up a flight of stairs, I always peek and I'm like, is there something under the flight of stairs? That's just like the way I've always played games. And this is the most rewarding game if you are that minded, because they'll be like, yeah, there's like a whole treasure under there. And I'm like, oh my God, like there's always something 99% of the time.
Yeah, or you'll just hear a random, NPC conversation, which again, it's like they're not open world on schedules, going to bed, going to work. They're just standing there to deliver this information kind of that you can overhear, and you go, is that a real thing? And you kind of put 2 and 2 together and go feel that out. Right. Like it makes it, reliably rewarding for sure.
Yeah, and there are moments too of like, oh, it's this type of game where it's like, okay, you can use your ice powers to freeze this part of the lake so that you can jump over here and explore this over here. Or like the easy answer also is use your fire spells to get rid of brambles. But have you been using your ice on water, Leo?
No, I've been seeing stuff above water. I haven't figured out how to get to it.
That's
a little helpful.
Ice lily pad.
Yeah.
It'll come in handy. Yeah. So it's nice to see some of that environmental stuff. It's a little cheesy and caked in when it's just like, hey, here's a destructible wall. Just blow this up. It's very clear exactly where this is. It's one spot that'll look cool, but sure, better to have it than not, I suppose.
It always feels good to find that anyways.
Yeah.
It's like I'm special. I noticed this, even if it's the most obvious thing.
Right.
Instead of exploding them, if you have the the fighter's
charge thing
or like charge attack, you just break through it and scream like the Kool-Aid Man. Yeah. That's very satisfying as well.
It's really good. It's really good. And I am role playing as the Juggernaut. So it's a pretty specific fantasy I have. Yeah. It's just, it's awesome to see it turn out this well, presumably. I think people are going to like it. Everyone that I've talked to that's playing it is gaga over it. So it's like, it is amazing. It's
so relaxing to play. It's a great turn your brain off game.
Yeah. It's cool. And not like a Vampire Survivors, but in that, it's interesting phrasing of turn your brain off.
Yeah, you have a lot of conversations with people, and you got to make choices.
Yeah, it seems like you have to think a little bit. All
right, I'm thinking a little bit.
We're all just that much dumber than.
Yeah, that's so smart.
We're drowning.
There's some decisions where I stopped and I was like thinking about it for a long time. There's some good ones later on for sure. I'm excited to hear what y'all picked, because there's like. Again, they're so great at that. It's like, do you want this one and all this bad stuff will happen, or this one and the bad stuff will happen? But there's like, but if this one happens, then down the line it might be a little bit better. But if we do this, there's like so many thoughts you could have. And not only is that a thing you could have, that also follows up and the characters like act on that. They'll like, you'll go somewhere and they're like, you made this decision, you did this. Oh, don't come to my store ever again. And I'm like, no, it's like that kind of stuff where you're like, it's great. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's just cool to have, Obsidian create a new classic. I mean, maybe there's a lot of Grounded fans out there that are screaming, but like I liked Outer Worlds. I think we all liked Outer Worlds. It just didn't light anybody's life on fire. I mean, Jeff and Kyle, is there any universe you like Outer Worlds more than Avowed so far, or how are you just on that direct comparison?
No.
You like Avowed more?
I enjoyed Outer Worlds, but yeah, when we started talking about it, like the amount that I could actually remember about it was not a ton. But
it was a while ago.
This has been really fun, and I'm really excited to keep playing it. And it's like every time that I play it, I will maybe get one mission done, and the rest of the time I'm just going around exploring, which is how I've always played, the Skyrim Bethesda games. But like here, it doesn't feel like I'm wasting any time as I do that, and I'm always finding interesting stuff. And the combat, wherever I end up going, like I run into enemies, and the combat encounters end up being really exciting and interesting. And then I walk away with good loot and upgrade stuff. So I upgrade my gun and I go out and I do it again. And it's just, it's very good. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because I'll always take like science fiction comedy as a genre like first over high fantasy, like in a heartbeat. But that's one of the reasons this game has surprised me so much, because I was kind of thinking about Outer Worlds and I was like, I am liking this more. And it kind of surprised me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just,
the great writing is like, if you want to say funny quips, that's one dialogue option. If you don't pick them, you don't hear them unless one specific character who is funny be's funny. It's like restrained and character specific. And yeah, I don't want to dump on Outer Worlds all day at all. But it is like Obsidian has such a good reputation as a studio, like so revered, and it's cool to have a game that like fully lives up to that reputation, I feel like.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So it's coming out February 18th. Curious to see what everyone else thinks of Avowed out there on Game Pass and on PC. But I mean, PS5 people, hold your breath. I'm sure it'll be out before August. Who knows? Yeah, I have no insight in info.
Are the bylines going to be, I'm wowed by Avowed? Who's going to use that? Polygon?
Probably Polygon's just going to write that over and over and over again. That's like the review. Yeah, it's kind of their style. It's awesome.
Sorry, Polygon, that was a random stray you just caught.
This might be like my biggest surprise.
They're idiots.
I'm curious if this will be like the biggest surprise even by the end of the year in terms of like a game's reception. It's just so cool to have like that bubbling up behind the scenes of people being like, this game you thought looked pretty good, it's actually really good. It's like, okay.
I remember seeing some of the trailers and being like, I don't know. Like I saw like the kind of like rabbit looking characters.
Yep.
Like I saw one of those in a trailer and like they grow on you. Now I kind of see them and I'm like, oh, it's her. I don't, you don't think about it. But I remember the first time I saw one of those, I was like, I don't like
and
the
you
look
like
of
this crap. Yeah.
I like it now.
Okay, Leo, not only are you in love with Avowed, you want to marry it and kiss it.
A lot of love to give.
Yeah, because also after the podcast last week, you checked out Eternal Strands, which is the other open region RPG. This one from former BioWare and Ubisoft talent. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. So you jumped into Eternal Strands, and what caught your fancy in this game finally?
I really, when Spelunky came out, that was a taste changer game for me,
Okay.
And one of the things I thought, every game's going to be doing this, is the way that you in Spelunky watch the world interact with itself and learn from that. See a guy, a caveman walk along and set off a arrow trap, and the arrow gets set off, and you know how that works now, and you know where that might be. It's rare that a lot of games do that, where you can learn from watching the world interact with itself. I think Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, that kind of stuff has it.
Yeah.
But this game for sure is working in that way where it's so systemic and you're discovering things faster because you're just seeing. Before you even move in, I see this giant towering pillar of a boss and I'm scared of him. And he starts fighting the wolves down below. and he knocks this tree down, and I see resources came from this big tree that's like so large I didn't even know it could be knocked down. And I get that resource is like, oh, this is actually like a rare resource. Like if there's some way I can knock this type of tree down, I should keep an eye out for that. Or like freezing enemies, or freezing to put out fire, those kinds of elemental interactions. It's like the world feels alive and you're dropped into it, and creatures don't necessarily like each other. I was kind of like, I got to clear this area out before I fight this dragon, but it's, of course, no one's going to be hanging out while a dragon is attacking you and blasting fire everywhere. Like the creatures disperse,
right? Because
it's like, it feels like a real ecosystem, and that's been, hitting real cool.
Yeah, just having that systemic focus for a game like this that's, pulling some DNA from Monster Hunter like we talked about last time. It just makes the world feel so much more engaging. You'd be like, okay, it's a little bit of a sandbox. There's possibilities here, whereas most other games, everything is just locked down in concrete. And Jeff, are you still playing Eternal Strands?
I was until Avowed came out.
Yeah.
But I did play a bunch since we talked. And let me say, like, Leo messaged me, a day after that podcast, and he told me how much he was enjoying it, and it made me so happy because I was worried that I was hyping it too much. I felt like so enthusiastic for it during that first podcast conversation. So I'm glad that I'm not completely crazy and out on my own limb. But like as I continued, I played another 20 hours or whatever after that, and it just keeps getting better. Like the different zones that you end up going to start getting like really crazy and really interesting. And I noticed more of like those interactions. Like at one point I fought, like lava monsters or whatever, some kind of monsters that were shooting fire everywhere. And then after I defeated them, I like broke this giant boulder, and I realized they had heated up the boulder and the boulder turned red. And when I broke the boulder, better ingredient, ingredients came out of it. It was like a much higher ore, and I was like, oh, I could have been heating these boulders the entire time, like cooking them up to like make different, like the higher end upgrade stuff that I needed. And it's just like that the tale of all your different upgrades has continued to be satisfying, and it's just I have gotten much better at combat now, so I'm not like terrified as I'm going around, and it's like that early loop of like I gotta get as much as I can, and then I gotta get out before I die. Like that has kind of subsided, but that has been replaced by like more meaningful exploration and a better mastery of like what my abilities are and what works well. And then like it gets legitimately more and more difficult, and so like I've had to change up my different different play styles and different attack tactics that carried me through the early parts of the game. And so and like the story keeps getting more interesting.
Okay.
There's a major thing that happens probably like 2/3 of the way through where you learn a bunch of stuff, and like the dynamics change around the camp that you have, and like it's like they really knocked it out of the park as their first game. Like A+ for them.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't know how well you know me, but me liking a game is not necessarily a good sign for its quality.
That is true.
Correct.
But
life, not
right.
the quality, but
sure, yeah. But some of the jank is pretty substantial and like intrusive, like the combat. And when you're trying to climb a monster and you're like, okay, suddenly jumped to its arm and didn't really mean to do that because like the perspective is weird. And which way do I even push to get to where I need to be on this monster?
Yeah.
Some of that is a little frustrating for sure. But I did see just today that they are like working on substantial changes for the combat and the feel of it, which is interesting. So maybe it's one to keep an eye on if people are unsure about it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is on Game Pass. It's a fun pairing with Avowed. I know we've talked about the last couple of weeks, like, boy, Microsoft, tough spot. What could they possibly do? And now I'm like, if you don't have Game Pass and you get it and you play Eternal Strands and Avowed for 1 month, that's a pretty damn good month. It's like just a couple of good games. Apparently I'll bite my tongue slightly about Xbox this year.
PS5 got none of them. PS5 got no games at all, so it's like interesting comparison. You got to think about that juxtaposition.
At the same time, Eternal Strands is available on PS5, so you can check it out there as well. It's not just an Xbox, but the Game Pass thing helps, I think.
Right. It feel like both of those games feel like the answer to like the Doomsday narrative that we've had of like, oh, every game costs $1 billion to make because they all have to be so big and so long. And what are we going to do? We can't afford to make games anymore. And it's like, no, you can make like AA focused games like this and like really knock them out of the park. And actually, the fact that they're smaller and more focused makes them better than the bigger games. Yeah. I hope these become a blueprint for other studios that, you know, not everyone has to make the next Skyrim or the next GTA. Like you can focus down, try things that are just, you know, you don't have to like completely come up with the most novel idea, like just focus on a few systems that are a little bit different and little combinations like that. And like you can create something that will, you know, be in my top 10 this year.
I hope people turn out for games like this for sure. It feels like, you know, you miss the AAA budget. The AAA budget not being there for the design is sometimes helpful, but not being there for the marketing can be really hard to compete with that. Yeah. But hopefully word of mouth is strong enough.
I'm curious to see what the reaction for Avowed in particular is going to be. You know, like, you know, talking to Dan Reichert for a bit last couple of days, and he's like, I think this was way underplayed. Like that whole idea of like, expect it to be about the size of Outer Worlds, kind of lower expectations. I think some people are gonna be like, oh, this is way bigger than I thought it was going to be. Like it seems like a pretty substantial compared to relative streamlining for something, you know, like an Outer Worlds here. So
I think it might be the word of mouth problem, because there was they like people could play the first level or something like that. Quite a while ago, I want to say, like the first big dungeon mission.
Yeah.
And you know, while I was playing this, I was listening to like previews of it just because I wanted to hear other people's takes on it too. And every single preview was so hot on it. And I was like, why didn't I hear this? You know what I mean? Like, why was this not met with, oh, okay, I'm really paying attention now? And instead just kind of felt like, oh yeah, that's coming out. I don't know. I don't know why that was.
I feel like part of that is because I did before we did the rapid fire, we all went and researched some games and I watched a bunch of previews that were like super hot, but like even the comments in those were like, yeah, I'm looking at the gameplay and I just don't believe you. And it's like that is like I probably ignored this game more than I should have, just because every time I saw gameplay I was like, doesn't look great.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think, you know, who are we to criticize marketing? It's always impossible. And now in retrospect, when the game seems great, it's like, okay, well, of course they should have just told the world that it was great the whole time. But, you know, I think back on the marketing great. And like, just like the push, I think in the videos and, you know, directs and stuff, was like, look, it's character choice. Your character choice matters. And it's like, okay. In a game with this scale, I feel like how much could it really matter? And I think coming off the heels of Baldur's Gate 3, it's like, yeah, we'll see about that. You know, and I think just I was amazed how much of a pop in the rapid fire interview, like you mentioned, Jeff, I'm like Carrie saying like, oh, enemies don't level with you. Like people were like, what? That's huge. You can side with the antagonist? That's huge. Like all these things. It's like, was that message just not getting out there? It seems like there's kind of like a cool RPG niche arrow you could fire in that crowd. I'm surprised that Xbox hadn't hit the mass audience, according to our perspective. You know, it's always a limited purview. I'm sure it was getting out there in some way.
Yeah, a lot of the comments were, there's no level scaling. I'm buying it day one. I didn't realize that was such a thing that people hated now.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it's annoying, but I didn't realize it was such a spark of anger if a game has that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Avowed and Eternal Strands are the names of those games.
Partners in fun.
Partners in fun. Now let's go to the magical world of PlayStation. Let's whisk you away to a land that's blue and expensive and black consoles as far as the eye can see. All right. Leo and Jeff, thanks for being here, guys.
I got wrapped up in my headphone cord.
Janet Garcia, welcome to the dang show.
Hello.
Honor to have you. PlayStation superfan, Janet Garcia. Let's run down.
That's what they call me.
The big state of play. What do you mean she doesn't look interested?
I know you personally.
Did you watch the state of play, Janet? What'd you think about it overall?
Yes, I did. I thought it was pretty strong. I mean, honestly, going into this, I was like, state of play, not a showcase. It's what I shout in my apartment and on the internet.
Yep.
But I'm like, you know what? If I squint my eyes a little bit, this could have been a showcase. You know, I felt like they had some big titles. And I think just the breadth of the amount of games they had was something that I appreciated. It's just in terms of, not that we have to rank everything, but in terms of talking about like good state of play, bad state of play, I think this one was solid. I'm not mad at it at all. And there's I left with some stuff to be excited about, which I feel like is at least a personal win. Yeah. That's all that really matters at the end of the day.
That's all it is. Yeah. I mean, my expectations were a little bit lower because it is that idea of like, okay, the big stuff's in the showcase. But then I was like, the last state of play is where they announced Ghost of Yote. And it's like I wonder if that is a strategy of like, unless they really call out this is for third party only, which they do every once in a while, I think maybe the implication is like we'll have one PlayStation Studio game for the big finale. And in this case, it was a great one. Should we jump right into that, Kylie?
Yeah. Do you want to like call out just some favorites that we enjoyed from
let's just jump to the whole kit and caboodle. The most exciting thing I presume for you in the showcase
was Saros.
yeah I thought so.
Question mark.
I think I was asking you and myself because honestly the Onimusha stuff was really exciting. Like I'm kind of all in on Onimusha right now,
of course,
but and Saros was like all I got from it was like this is Housemarque's next game and it's gonna be kind of like Returnal, but it's not a sequel.
Right
that's I didn't get much from it. But I am very excited for a follow-up to Returnal, even if it's not a sequel. Returnal doesn't need a sequel. I didn't need Returnal 2.
Re-Returnal.
Yeah.
Returnal.
It's right there. Oh.
But yeah, I it's more just like I'm happy to have a Housemarque recognize the success of Returnal and they're staying on that path for their next game. That's exciting. That's all I need to know. I don't even need to see it. Yeah,
let's build on that foundation a little bit. And it seems like they're kind of sticking with, okay, the cyclical nature of when you die, it's going to be kind of the big budget roguelike idea to some extent here, except now
presumably,
you're on an alien planet and evil monsters come out when this eclipse happens.
I did like the tease of like you could see it was almost a reflection. You could kind of see bullet hell. Sort of bullets sort of traveling.
Yeah. They know what people want.
That's a nice little tease. That's enough to confirm what to expect here.
Yep, it is a Housemarque game after all. Yeah, so on the PlayStation blog, they say, Saros is an action game with the haunting story of a lost off-world colony under an ominous eclipse. You play as Arjun, a powerful Soltari enforcer who will stop at nothing to find who he's looking for. And that guy is, of course, played by Rahul Kohli. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing his last name. From Midnight Mass and Fall of the House of Usher. And weird detail, Alana Pierce's boyfriend. So that's a weird thing for...
Yeah, they did a reaction stream together. Which
really?
Fun.
That's so fun.
Yeah. Oh, damn it. That's cool.
They weren't surprised by that, if you could be
really
surprised by them not being surprised.
So Kyle, on the PlayStation blog, they say, a key gameplay distinction between Saros and Returnal is permanent resources and progression, making every death valuable. After every death, you will face a changed world, but in Saros, you'll be able to choose and permanently upgrade your loadout from an evolving set of weapons and suit upgrades to come back stronger. As they put
I love that. That is maybe like an element that I had to overcome in Returnal.
Yeah,
right? It's like I usually kind of need that in this genre, at least a little bit. But Returnal, I was just enjoyed so much that I like kind of was like, you know what, I'm so invested in the sort of the mood of this game that I don't really mind that it's missing that. So that's a really cool detail. I'm glad you educated me on that.
Yeah, you betcha. It's funny too to see in their messaging how much they're like, it's single player. And I think some people were probably expecting branching out because I forgot that there was that whole Ascension update to Returnal where they added co-op, remember?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so it's like, I bet it's like them kind of teasing where they could go in the future. So I think it is cool with a modern Sony to be like, this game's coming out in 2026 and it's single player focused, everybody. Don't worry. We're still pivoting
Don't make
hard.
Friends for a year. You're fine.
Please, desperately.
COVID's done.
Also, last thing about this game, Saros, is the creative director is Gregory Loudon, who was a writer for Quantum Break. And so visiting Remedy all those years ago, he was like the lead writer for Quantum Break. And then he was like a narrative director on Returnal. But it's cool to see him stepping up because I guess the game director for Returnal left Housemarque in 2023. And now Gregory's stepping up as creative director here. But Saros, they say more gameplay coming later in the year for this thing. So I'm curious to see more for sure. Haley, what was the biggest eye popper for you?
Everyone else seemed a little cool in it, but I was intrigued by MindsEye. I don't know. That looks kind of interesting. Okay. The GTA former dev guy, everyone was like, that looks kind of weird. I was like, wait, I kind of like it. I don't know. It's again, one of those games I'm like, what is that? I'm always excited for a what is that game that's just kind of like nothing I've seen before. It looked a little GTA-y, a little The Division almost in the way you're taking cover and shooting. And I was just like intrigued. And it's interesting that it's coming from like a former GTA dev, and it looks like GTA. We've never really seen like that talent go off and make a game that's similar to the genre they worked on for like a decade there. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of interesting.
So yeah, Leslie Benzies, he's the producer who was at Rockstar forever. And so this is a weird one. So the studio is called About a Rocket Boy. And this is a game about a boy who shoots rockets. But the weird part is like at Gamescom 2022, the big announcement was, hey, we're working on a game called Everywhere. Do you remember? And it really felt like they were trying to be the successor to GTA Online. And that's also from this studio. So they're making that kind of multiplayer GTA 5 online world. And then this is their narrative-driven single-player thing that's called MindsEye. But I'm really curious. It seems wild for this new studio with this legendary producer, but still for this new studio to make like 2 giant worlds at the same time. Or maybe they're focusing on MindsEye and then they'll go back to that Everywhere game, which seemed a bit ambitious.
Maybe they're building a sort of a location that they can use in multiple games.
That could be.
Maybe,
probably,
like a Yakuza almost approach.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking too. It's like, we're already in here building this and this looks awesome. Let's just make a narrative game in this and all the assets are already made.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah. But summer 2025 is what they're saying for MindsEye. And it feels like a game that should have been like a teaser for a PS4 game or something. It has some... Maybe I'm just thinking of Watch Dogs.
Wow.
It feels like
it gave a little Watch Dogs, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, look at this tech, but it's not the most mind-blowing thing you've ever seen. Kind of just like a standard GTA-esque shooter, but in sci-fi world. I'm curious to see how it
I'm intrigued by it. I'm not necessarily saying this game's going to be insane. I'm just like, what's that over there? And it's on my radar, as opposed to the 80,000 Souls-like games I saw that I can't remember right now.
There's a lot of them. Janet, what was your biggest pop at home?
Dreams of Another. Like,
Dreams of Another, yeah.
Not even close.
Interesting.
Art game, but you have an AK-47. They dare to make an artsy shooter. Finally, you know why can't we have it all?
I know.
They said, you know what?
Splatoon, Janet.
It's not artsy. It's cute. It's cutesy shooter. This is an artsy shooter. Yeah. They're like, you're kind of walking through a nebulous space.
Made me think of like Unfinished Swan, but like with
I clocked that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfinished Swan notes and Ete notes as well, which I think you were pretty into that one.
Yeah. It was like that. You're right.
So this is Q Games making this thing. It's interesting to see them leaning into the Pixel Junk branding. It's not like Pixel Junk Shooter. I guess there was a Pixel Junk Shooter, but it's like
their best game. One might argue.
Actually, I think you're probably right. That 2-pack, especially for 1+2.
I think Kyle might be the one arguing. I don't know.
I like Pixel Junk Shooter a lot.
The one might be here right now.
But Pixel Junk is just kind of like a sub-brand now for Q Games, it seems like. And it's so weird, though, to see Sony get behind a game that looks a little bit like that Dreams art style, and then it starts with the word dreams, but this has nothing to do with Media Molecule. This is just Dreams of Another. And the premise is you have an AK-47 and you're shooting this world to create things, because things need to be destroyed in order for new things to be created, is the poetic message they're trying to send across.
Yeah,
I dig that.
You punch a clown at one point or slit him in the throat. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but it's wild and wonky. It reminds me of a lot of other games I've enjoyed. Like, it's not the same in gameplay, but like I get maquette vibes from this in terms of just like funky perspectives. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it looks unlike anything that I've seen, and yet it feels eerily familiar, which is like such a sweet spot in terms of like compelling project. Like, this thing sold me instantly and it only kept selling me. It also just looks really beautiful. It had some really nice dreamy animations of like the carousel animation really got me, of the horses coming to life and just like walking off. But
then you're shooting it with a machine gun. It's like an artsy game.
Well, that's how we like created them, you know? It's like, that is so cool. That was my favorite thing by like, I think a lot.
Yeah, it was cool that it's PSVR 2 supported too for Dreams of Another there.
Yeah, PlayStation didn't forget. It's there. It was here. PSVR 2 was here this time. It's happening.
All right, Kyle, you want to talk about this big Onimusha? The thing you predicted was going to be the showcase, and I laughed you. I tried to actually boot you from the reaction stream because I thought that is such a stupid idea. Capcom just emphasized it. They just revealed there's nothing more to say, and then it was the Onimusha showcase again. It won't stop.
Yeah, I look forward to the social clip of you having the part A and part B.
It's coming.
Everyone making fun of me, and then me being right. That prediction stemmed from its showcase at Capcom feeling like you guys had more that you didn't want to share yet.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but not, and you know, you could say that about any reveal for any game, but for some reason it felt pointed at Capcom. And so like, yeah, I was really excited to see like some gameplay, because I've been very curious. It's like, is it just kind of going to look like a third person action game? Because they're not going to do pre-rendered backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like they stopped doing that after the second game, I think. But the thing that struck me that like, and I think it sort of popped for you too, Haley, is that like they had like 2 unexpected jokes in it.
Yeah.
And like it's just like, okay, this guy's gonna be kind of weird and funny, which is like we just finished playing the first game, and like Sam Inosuke is like, you know, not funny except for the fact that he exists in a launch era PS2 game. So there's always just a little bit of like goofiness that they just couldn't escape because they were figuring out how to make a PlayStation 2 game for the first time, you know, and they didn't know how to hire actual actors, you know.
Yeah,
but to have
funny.
Have a sense of humor in like a clear sense of humor delivered in this sort of like gameplay showcase, I was like, oh, I wasn't really expecting that, and I love it.
That's the big thing, is I think even seeing the teaser trailer for Onimusha Way the Sword and not dabbling with the series at all until The Deepest Dive, where we just finished a 2-part discussion about the first game, that was the biggest mind-blowing thing about that first game, is like, oh, these games are wacky and silly. Like, the enemies are goofy Power Rangers villains. Like, it's...
You guys called them Muppets, and I could not agree more. The demons feel like Muppets.
They're hilarious, weird Muppets. And so, even the teaser trailer for Way the Sword, I was a little worried about, but this is the first time it's like, okay, the main character is going to be bringing the personality, and I hope that they bring back some stupid Muppet demons. That's what I want from the bad guys here. And we're inching closer. But the weird thing with this is they have the protagonist, Miyamoto Musashi, and he's voiced by one guy, but they have the face model, and the face model is Toshiro Mifune, who I'm sure I'm butchering the name, so forgive me there. But he is an actor who's been dead since the 70s. But he's in a lot of the Kurosawa stuff, like Seven Samurai and stuff. So they licensed this dead actor's face model to be in the new Onimusha, which is really weird.
But that's what they did that for Onimusha 2 as well.
Oh, really? That guy is also dead?
The protagonist was an actor who had passed away many years prior. He was like a classic Japanese cinema guy. And at the time, I remember reading articles about it being a problem and people actually not liking it. Mm-hmm. So that's like that's weird, right? It's like, it's surprising, but it's not. It's not. I'm trying to think of the phrase. Onimusha's done it before.
Okay,
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. It's still a weird idea, but also I was excited, and I don't know if they have this in the rest of the series, but I'm excited that the Gauntlet is talking to the main character. Yeah, Haley called out.
I'm not sure.
Haley called out Forspoken vibes in there, but like that also is like, hey, there's a little something in there. I'm curious to see where that goes. There's that weird bit too.
There was a game that was all about sand and like surfing through the sand like a year or two ago. It was like Atlas something.
Sable?
You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, you have a talking gauntlet in that game too. I don't know. It was like a weird trend for a minute there. It was very weird.
Oh, are you thinking of the Platinum Games game? Atlas Fallen or whatever?
I don't think so. I'll look it up.
Okay.
I see you too, Ben, Googled Atlas Sand Game Talking Gauntlet.
I did not. But...
thing that came up. Okay, that's what came up. Atlas Fallen. I'm like, I don't think that's it. I think they just saw I wrote Atlas.
Maybe it's not Atlas. Back. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Other stuff. Rapid fire through some cool things. I was delighted. I guess just on behalf of Kyle Bossman that we're getting a new big budget Digimon RPG. It's exciting to see. Like
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's just, hey, we're making a full RPG. It's kind of the successor to Cyber Sleuth, which apparently came out 10 years ago. But I remember that game came out and the reviews were like shockingly good. And I never played it, even though I loved Digimon back in the day. And so it's like, oh, having an entry point for a new RPG in the Digimon universe, like I am compelled by you, Digimon story. Time Stranger, as of course we're all going to remember as the name of forever.
As a Pokemon stan, is Digimon the kind of thing that's purely nostalgia based, or have they been keeping up with the kids, so to speak? And do kids like Digimon? Do we know this?
I cannot imagine.
So this is just aiming for the 30-year-olds.
Kyle. It's like,
yeah, help us.
My daughter like Digimon.
She found many years ago the original show was on Netflix, and she did watch some of it.
Okay.
She found her own. I did not push her toward that. She's like, this looks interesting. So I think she like knows what it is, but I don't think there's any like I don't think kids know what Digimon is truly.
No,
the OG PAL world.
It really is.
Literally.
Yeah, it feels that way.
Because they were going toe to toe when I was a kid, right? It was like, oh, I watched Digimon and Pokemon. Which one's better? This one has literal gods in it. Then they added Arceus and all, whatever. They were fighting back and forth. But now it's like,
Slam
obviously, it's slam dunk Pokemon. But I just wonder if there's been any effort to sort of reach back and keep up that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think they've done.
Not until Time Stranger comes out. Then people are going to be like, whoa.
Then the kids will be in on it. Yeah.
Get ready, kiddos. Kyle, you were talking about Metal Gear Solid 3. We're talking about that a little bit. That we got the release
trailer
date
I forgot
that.
had fully leaked, and I was like, I feel like I've seen this already. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, right, it leaked.
Did it leak or was it just posted? I thought it.
The full trailer leaked, yeah.
Oh,
It was
that's
like
how I've seen it
posted
before.
to the PlayStation Store and people grabbed it.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's what it was.
That's a bummer.
Yeesh. But yeah, it's the release date trailer. So the game's coming out August 23rd for the remake. And then the big tease at the end was, we have the Ape Escape characters. Snake versus Monkey is back, baby. But we're talking off air, Kyle, about, you're like, how's that going to work on not PlayStation consoles? How's that going to work on Steam and Xbox and stuff? And
Tell me, Ben.
well, apparently Xbox teased that for their version, the Ape Escape apes are going to be replaced by Bomberman. So you're going to be hunting Bomberman, apparently.
I'm into
That's
it.
fascinating.
I'm into it
That's
too.
awful.
No, like it feels. It's like Soul Calibur 2, man. Let's do something. Get weird with it. I don't know. I like everyone having different sort of characters. Does
Do you
Steam
like it
have
when
something?
it's legally required? The fun's a little less fun though, right?
Yeah, yes, in some ways.
I don't know. I mean, it's just Sony doesn't want to share, I guess, right? Like,
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember. I mean,
it's not like illegal.
Well, it's
They
Sony,
probably got
not
asked them and they
Sharony,
said
you
no
know?
thanks, right? Yeah.
Snake Eater 3DS. Did that not have? It just must have cut the mode entirely, right?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I'm guessing they just didn't have the
If only
Snake
anyone had
versus
played
Monkey.
it. They could
Yeah.
tell us
No
what-
one could possibly get to that.
That's a game I should just have in perpetuity because it's just, you know what I mean?
Though
Just
maybe,
like make
you
sure
know,
I have that copy. I wonder how much
I
it is
talk a
on
lot of
eBay.
smack, but a lot of my I've been realizing a lot of my older games like I did do on handheld. So I'm sure there are probably a good amount of people that did do that.
There must be out there.
If you're among the cursed individuals, please write in and tell us what was going on with those monkeys.
Anybody got the?
$100 for a copy of Metal Gear Solid 3 for 3DS on eBay?
What
Get
am I,
outta
Kelsey?
here.
What?
One
Come
copy of Metal
on.
Gear. How much could it cost, Kyle?
I bet Kelsey will hook you up. Go to Pink Gorilla. I bet she'll get a copy.
I can get just a cartridge for $23. I don't know, guys. I don't know.
do it.
Where's
You
the
need
fun,
the
though?
box.
I don't know if I want to
Yeah.
play Metal Gear Solid 3 at a lower frame rate
Maybe rough.
without a right control stick. I don't know if I can do it.
What do y'all like? What's popping for the rest of the showcase that's out for people?
I like
Directive
the Octopus
8020?
game. Oh yeah,
Okay.
I'm excited for that too. Let's talk about that. That's a better pick.
Okay. Yes. So, I mean, yes. So I know you're among where the supermassive stands of the group. I don't know if there's any other people at MinnMax that die for these games.
No,
the
we
way
kicked
you
him out a
do,
long
but
time ago.
Yeah, we're the surviving final ones. From the studio behind Until Dawn in the Quarry, the shade to the Dark Pictures anthology in this is unreal. I lived through those games. You will honor our history. Okay?
I know they got the tiniest little subheading at the very end, like a Dark Pictures game, like in the
Like, by the way,
tiniest little
is it a
font.
Dark Pictures game? Because
They did say,
Haley,
yeah.
It's in the
what is
legalese.
going on?
The lawyer
what is going
said
on?
so.
That's true. What is going on with the Dark Pictures, though? I thought they were free. Are they not freed from the Dark Pictures? Is it Chapter 2? Can you have a Chapter 2 if you had 8 games? What's happening?
I don't know. It's almost like they're trying to distance themselves from this being part of that collection now because they've gotten so stale. Like, I don't know about you, but like half of them have been pretty meh. We like my friend group really liked one, and then one of them we hated. So it's kind of like, they're kind of all over
Man
the
of
place.
Medan was the one you hated, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
Is that the boat one?
Yeah.
That was the very first one.
Okay. I
Yeah.
played that one. I guess I wasn't supposed to. In retrospect, I should have waited for the other ones.
Kyle. Part of the culture is it doesn't matter how good the games are.
Yeah.
You're playing them.
You gotta do
This
it.
game, Haley could be like, Jen, this
I
game
got
is
off
awful.
that
I'd
train
be like,
after Man of Medan.
still want to get onto it? No, there's so many seats here for you, Kyle. We need you on here.
You can kick up your feet.
Did you play The Casting of Frank Stone, Janet?
Not yet. You said it was not good, right? You were not
It's my
into it?
least. It's my least favorite. I played
can't
every
wait
game
to
of theirs.
play it.
They made that game for you, Haley. So
I know.
If it's not hitting for you,
I thought it was
Yeah.
going to be a Game of the Year contender for me because it's quite literally one of my favorite studios working with one of my favorite IPs. I was like, done.
This is the Dead by
Perfect.
Daylight.
Yeah.
This is the
world.
Dead by
Yeah.
Daylight one, yes. And, the starting was so strong. absolutely middle for hours and hours and hours, and the last 15 minutes was good. Just like, holy crap, what a bad sandwich with like 2 decent pieces of bread.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think they're really trying to, the Quarry was quite good. Until Dawn was quite good. I think they're trying to distance this from, it looks like they're pouring a bit more attention into this compared to other Dark Pictures games. At least, especially that trailer was really good. It looks like they have a lot of detailed scenes and stuff. They just need to pick up the likability of the characters needs to be a lot better. Like, of course, you need to have a villain, right? Like, everyone loves to hate Emily in Until Dawn, but you still want to see her face and like hear her talk. It's like fun to hate her. And some of their new characters in the Dark Picture, you're just like, get out of this screen. It's like, I don't know what's going on there. Then when that's 90% of the fun is like, I'm this character and I'm making these choices, and you hate the characters, you're going to bounce off pretty fast. So it seems like they're carrying more with this one. So they're trying to say like, it's part of this because we said it was going to be, but also it's bigger than that.
Yeah, I think so this one, if people haven't caught it, it's like sci-fi vibes. I've seen some The Thing comparisons from people talking about it online of what are the twists going to end up being and what's on the ship and that kind of thing. I do think it looks like, obviously it's in a trailer, so it's different than what's in, when we actually have our hands on it. But yeah, I would largely agree with that. I think the Dark Pictures was a very mixed bag. And I think the Quarry felt like, we don't know what's going on inside the studio, but it kind of felt like they got more time to let that one bake. Yeah. And we weren't just stuck on this hamster wheel of like, oh my God, we said we'd have this many games. And then they did the classic thing where they're like, it's an anthology. And then they're like, but what if we tied it together? They what if Marveled themselves. And I'm like, no, an anthology can just be separate. That's what makes it cool. And they're like, what if I put it together? And I'm like, no, don't put it together. So yeah, but to know these games to me is to love these games. So okay. I'm in this. I'm ready to get hurt again. I haven't finished the Quarry yet, so I'm excited to finish that and clean up the remainder of Dark Pictures. I have The Devil in Me, which I also heard was fine. And then the one you hated, which I will also be playing.
I actually replayed the Quarry this weekend, and it holds up. It's great. We played the entire of it in one go. My friend Kyle never played it. He was visiting for the weekend, like sleeping over, and when I was like, we're playing this entire game, and if you don't like it, we'll stop. Sorry, not you, Kyle, my other Kyle friend. And it holds up super good. I think you'll really like it.
Spoilers for me messaging you about Bonus Pod. Once I'm done with everything, we have to do an supermassive in-review episode and really just breaking it all down.
The supermassive episode. Absolutely.
That'd be good. But yeah, the game is called Directive 8020. Directive 8020, everybody, for the new supermassive game that they showed there. One of the coolest things visually, I think, was Sega finally revealed the new Shinobi game that they're making. For all the fans of Shinobi back there on the Genesis and whatnot, we're making a new one.
Is this the Metrovania one?
This is not a Metroidvania. It looks like it.
It looked like it in the trailer.
It looks like it, but it is not. So it's Shinobi Art of Vengeance, and it's a level-based game, but it's from Lizard Cube, who made Streets of Rage 4, which ruled, and Wonder Boy, which was also an awesome game. And just the art that they're going for with this new Shinobi looks incredible, kind of a hand-drawn style, but it is going to be kind of just old Ninja Gaiden style of level-based gameplay, apparently.
I believe Shinobi was the Genesis game that like fully had Spider-Man and Batman as bosses in the game, but like did not, call anyone at DC or Marvel, just like but they got away with it.
What?
Are you guys familiar with this? It just
no.
There's like bosses that are just like, it looks indistinguishable from Spider-Man and Batman. I think I could be wrong about this.
And what, they just call it like Spider Guy or something?
Yeah, Spider Guy who's like red and blue and swings around, and Man Bat who has a cowl and ears. So hopefully that makes it into this game.
It'd be nice to have a nod to it at least, yeah.
I like that octopus game. It looked cool. It looked like Inside, but with an octopus. I don't know. It stuck out with a lot of other things that were getting a little samey for me.
Yep.
I like games like that.
This is Darwin's Paradox. Yeah, it did look a cool.
Sorry, cool.
It's not just
called Octopus game.
That one octopus game. No, it did look super cool. The Inside comparison's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, but just kind of wacky platformer as an octopus. That seems great.
Yeah. Well, it kind of showed him at one point there was like things you could hide behind, and you had to something turn to look at you, and you had to like freeze and not move. It looks like he camouflages and tries to look like a little part of the ground. It was giving Inside where you're like pretending to walk and have to stop when the cameras look at you and stuff like that.
Yep. And it's Konami publishes it too, which is Konami's been I know everyone likes to dunk on Konami. They have been publishing some cool stuff over the last couple of years that just people do not acknowledge.
Who's dunking on Konami?
Every time it's like, oh, do they still even make games? It's like, pay attention. They published some cool stuff, everybody. Open your damn eyes.
I think that criticism was fair like 3 years ago. But like in the last year, they're they got Silent Hill 2, they got Metal Gear, now they're doing
your references, everybody. Got to stay current. Konami's the biggest publisher in the world. We all need to just grin and bear it. I'm curious to see what this is going to be like, that Warriors Abyss, where it's Muso roguelike, which is really weird, coming right after Dynasty Warriors Origins released and is doing gangbusters. But now it's like, hey,
and that Haley insists she will not play. That's
this one.
Yeah,
I turned my brain off during that. Not gonna lie, sorry.
Okay, what if it was just, and it's out now. It's shadow dropped. I'm hoping it's gonna be on Steam as well. It's all I can see.
Kyle's even kind of interested. He doesn't even know he can play it right now.
No,
it's tempting. But what if it is just genuinely like Muso Vampire Survivors, which is kind of what it looks like in the gameplay. And that's going to be enough for me.
Koei Tecmo, right?
Yep, it is, yeah.
Okay, I like them taking what they've established as a genre, basically, and trying to mix it up and do something different with it for sure.
Yeah, maybe we could talk about it next week, but it is on Steam for $25 as well, so might be a stupid...
What do we just call those, like warrior likes or what?
Musos.
Musos.
Haley. Musos. Move over, Muso. All right. Borderlands 4 also got a release date. We're obligated legally to mention it. September 23rd for Borderlands 4. And
Randy Pitchford was there?
He was there in spirit and in person.
He's there a lot.
I'm
always surprised to see him. Like, really? Still? That's interesting. I just think it's interesting is what I'll say. It's an interesting choice.
The interesting thing to me, Janet, other than seeing Randy Pitchford's face, is the idea that Take-Two said that GTA 6 was coming before Borderlands 4. In the last earnings call. And so if now we know that Borderlands 4 is September, that's an interesting little wrinkle.
This is the journalism that you need to support on patreon.com/MinnMax. Who's going to know those deets with the earnings calls? Are you in there listening, Ben? That's fantastic.
Yeah, somebody wrote a stupid news story about it and I read it.
No, you were in there, I bet.
I'm sorry. I mean, I was in there. All right.
Good.
I was in IGN's story that Rebecca wrote.
Hey, Haley, thank you for mentioning that Patreon, because that is an option for if you want to help support Independent Games Media, support everything we're building here at MinnMax. It's more than just a podcast. It's a whole Patreon post. It's a whole YouTube channel. There's a whole lot of stuff happening. And you can go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Jump in, support us, and you can get a code for Cryptmaster, one of Janet's favorites from last year.
Yeah.
If you support us before the 17th of February here, and if we are under 5,700 paid supporters, you get a Steam code for Cryptmaster. So check it out. Help support this entire operation. And if you're feeling wild, if you have a wild bee in your bonnet, boy, do I have something for you. And that is, of course, I Am 8-Bit. They want you to know about World of Warcraft Classic, the vinyl soundtrack. It's available in I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store right now. Check it out. It is an awesome version, limited edition vinyl. If you want the soundtrack for World of Warcraft Classic, it looks great, it sounds great, it's an I Am 8-Bit joint, you know it's going to be damn classy. And you can go to I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store, use the promo code BeMyPlayer2, BeMyPlayer2 for 10% off of everything in their store, not including Atlas games, or vinyl soundtracks, or pre-orders. Otherwise, 10% off of everything in I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. And you should help support I Am 8-Bit because...
TWO or numerical 2? Be my player.
TWO. Thank you. Very astute.
Good distinction.
Very astute. But support I Am 8-Bit because they support the MinnMax community in a big way by shipping out a prize each and every week to whoever has the best question. And this is as good as it gets. Whoever submitted the best question on Patreon this week, because you support us at any tier, you can submit a question, you make the show better. The number one winner this week wins the Mario movie vinyl soundtrack.
Nice.
Which I listen to more than you'd think. And Kyle, I think about this a lot. Do you think we discuss enough how odd or bold it was that for the main theme of the Mario movie, they made a new song? It's not like they just used the classic Mario theme as the main theme for the movie. They had a whole original song. Do you remember the song?
Why can't I remember it?
It's like did Kondo didn't write it. Right?
No, Brian Tyler, who composed the movie, wrote it. It's like dun 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 dun. It's a good little tune.
Yeah, I really like the composition. I really like the music in the Mario Brothers movie to the point where I am frustrated by the licensed music in it. I think they should have just excised all the licensed music from that film.
None of that.
I think maybe this theme is under discussed because it's not a Koji Kondo like theme. You know, like the worst version of that movie is just all new music, right? Like I'm glad they didn't go that route.
But for this orchestrated bit, it's something different. Travis and Frogger writes in, and Travis and Frogger writes, if someone strongly recommends something, like a movie or a video game, do you find you're more or less likely to enjoy it?
It depends on who recommended it.
Oh,
I was saying the same thing.
That's so mean, but it's true. And I'm not gonna emphasize what I mean by that.
I don't have the guts to ask which one I am, Haley. So don't tell me, please.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a good one, Janet. Don't even worry about it.
Finally,
it also depends on like the media type. I don't know. When someone's like, you gotta watch this Netflix show, I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, I will never be watching that Netflix show. I just it depends on what they're recommending and if there's time in my week to even consider it. If it's a movie, maybe. Show.
It's kind of across the board less for me, like universally, because if you don't sort of seek it out and discover it on your own, it's just not quite as fun, or I don't get quite as invested.
Kyle,
this is the thing I found on my own, where if someone's like, oh, I know you and you'll like this, then you watch it and you're like, yeah, they were right.
Yeah.
You're mad they were right.
Yeah.
Why do you know me? Ew.
I think everybody has this to some extent. Kyle, I think you're nearing the top of the stack in my mind of those people that are really in that idea of like, I found this before other people did. Not like in a braggadocio kind of way, but like it influences how much you love things. And like we all have that to some extent. Yeah. It's tough to get out of your system, but it's a thing for sure.
Play Iconoclast.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
See, I actually kind of like getting into something like a little bit later, because then it's like you get to join in on the fun. Like it was really fun finally like watching Severance season 1 like way after the fact.
Okay.
And being like, oh my God, this is good. And then having like, I think it depends on the context too. Like for that, my fiance had already watched it and then he started like watching all of it with me. But I think this question's tough because the question isn't like, are you more going to watch or not? It's like, does it change your enjoyment?
Yeah.
I don't know if it changes my enjoyment, but I think I do, depending on the context. I feel like the weight of this potentially either shifting, like having to deliver someone bad news, like, hey, I tried the thing that you were like so excited and I hated it, or being like, oh my God, I think this person has bad taste. Awkward. And then later, and then you end up using them as the inverse. Like I have people where it's like, they'll be like, this movie was great. I'm like, got you. This movie sucks. You know, and it's kind of, so I don't know. I guess there's a lot of, I feel like there's pressure. It doesn't necessarily change how I feel about the thing, but it changes the weight of having to experience it.
Yeah, it kind of, it's a multiplier. If I was kind of meh on a movie and somebody recommended it, then I'm really meh on the movie, then I'm really down on it, you know? But it's like, if I like the movie and someone recommended it, then maybe it's like, I'll like it more because they recommended it. It's just, it's a way to supercharge the opinion about it, you know?
You know what always sucks too is if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't have a lot of like emotional intelligence and they'll recommend something to you and you're like, oh, I didn't really like that. And they're like, you don't like me? You're like, oh, now I gotta separate yourself from your like people who
are these people in your life?
The internet. But it's like their recommendations are themselves almost to you. Yeah. And if you say, I don't like your recommendation, they're like, you don't like me. Like I've dealt with people like that before, and you have to essentially like now tiptoe around the fact that you don't like it if they bring it up. I don't know. I hate that kind of situation.
Brian Tylek right in. Oh, he almost composed the Mario movie. One of the most common jokes I've noticed in the chat for every streamer I've ever watched is people saying, is this a Strand game? Whenever anything even tangentially similar to Death Stranding happens. But the more time that goes on, the thing that spawns that joke becomes closer and closer to what Kojima was actually describing when he introduced the concept. My question for you is, was Kojima right? Did he get the last laugh? Did Kojima win? Are there just Strand games now?
He is, honestly. Yeah, he's always
I fear Kojima won. I fear he did win.
Yeah, play Metal Gear Solid 2 and you'll know that he won. He's always winning.
What does that mean?
Because it's about the proliferation of like too much data in the world and how it causes so much problems in society and AI and all that.
So he's just poignant.
That's a big part of the finale of Metal Gear Solid.
So you would say you would recommend us we play that, huh?
Yeah, but if you don't like it, I'm going to take it personally.
I will not be playing it. So I don't have to deal with that. I think it's not a joke anymore. I think it's surpassed its jokey form to be an actual term that means something now.
I think
I
so
know
too.
what somebody means when they say that.
Yeah, just a game that interconnects with other players. As
that, like, you can only interject activity into other people's games is kind of what I think of as a Strand game.
Yeah,
it has to be positive.
Players. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
interesting.
I still think of it more as a mechanical thing than a genre. I just think it's not definitive enough of a. It isn't, at least in other games that have elements of that. I don't think it defines the game enough. Like, and I think that is what seems unique. I haven't played Death Stranding yet, but what seems unique to Death Stranding, where that is more of like it's weighted more heavily versus like people writing little notes. I mean, maybe some Souls players would say that is transformational, but I think it's more of like a little bit of extra salt on the food more than like a big, a side dish.
So maybe there's a distinction between, there is like such thing as a Strand mechanic and a Strand game. And a Strand game is just like mostly Strand mechanics with a few other things.
Yeah, maybe Kinder Words is a Strand game, I guess, in retrospect.
It kind of is,
I don't know if it's like...
There's something to that.
They got Castlevania of them.
Wild Hearts is a Strand game.
Yeah, there's
everything you leave behind is stuff that other players.
Is every MMO a Strand game?
Absolutely, he invented it. Yeah. No, I remember.
I think the thing is, the reason it's a joke is because he invented a word, and also he tried to do it with transfarring, and that was just like so stupid.
And everybody laughed, but Kyle, then the Switch came out, and now transfarring is just what we do on a daily basis, where we have the handheld game and then we bring it to the big screen. That's it, baby.
That's right. He did it.
Yeah, Cliffy B called this Mingle Player. I remember back in the day, and I was like, I wonder if that's going to catch on. It's kind of cool.
That.
You don't like Mingle Player?
It sounds sleazy.
Sleazy.
It's giving creepy guy touching you on the bus.
Okay, yeah, you know what? That's why it never took off. Adam.
So you didn't need to put your hand on my lower back to get by me.
Oh my God, Janet, that's my least. Oh wow, I can have a whole rant about that.
Excuse me. It's like, okay, what if I was a man?
Hey, Adam Cohen writes in, and he's a classy gentleman. He'd never do those types of things. I presume. If you're a criminal, let us know, Adam. He says, hey, I recently finished Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. There's a mechanic in this game that I'm honestly not sure how I feel about. Every time you open a door, you press X to put your hand on the door, and then you have to move the left analog stick to actually open it. It's the same for chests and other objects. Do you all like this? Does it feel more immersive? What is this all about?
Barely. It's barely more immersive. It really is just an extra step. I hate that you can see Indy's hands during the entire game. I feel like I haven't been able to talk to you about this.
Yes.
Oh, the big sprinting hands?
It's so distracting. Why did they do that?
In Avowed, you can see your hands everywhere.
I know. I hate it too. But something about indies is just like they're so movie.
It gives hardcore Henry. Seconds. Is the thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, why his dad's name was Henry.
I hate it.
I get it. I
too don't like it.
It's weird. It's like they want it to be more immersive. At the same time, it just makes you think about the controller more.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true.
So if
I just open the door, it feels like, I was just doing it.
Yeah.
Without
Kyle,
moving.
are you a slow open defender? You're suspiciously quiet here.
Slow to open your mouth.
I'm
kind of likes it.
I don't know. I just like that little bit of extra interactivity. I mean, I don't really feel like I'm actually opening a door, but I do feel like there's more tactility to the world when you can actually interact with it in that way. In the same way you can go into a store in Red Dead 2 and look at everything and pick things up, and it just makes it feel more like a place to me. I like it.
Interesting.
Really condescending. Interesting.
That was so genuine. Did that sound condescending? My bad.
You said it in the way like a therapist is like, huh? And it's like, wait, no, I fear I made a mistake. I should have told you about this.
I got, when we at Game Inform, Brian Shea was basically the primary reviews editor, and he gave me this great note once that I think about all the time, is where I use the word interesting. I'm like, yeah, this is really interesting. And it's like, and he just highlighted that, and he was like, when you say interesting, that just means that bad. You're just trying to think of a way that's the word interesting doesn't really mean anything in sort of the context of critically talking about a game. You're just saying what are you trying to say? This, yes. If you want to say it's bad, say it's bad. If you want to say it's good, say it's
You're
good.
Right.
Interesting is floating in the middle, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, my thought there was, I don't agree with Kyle. My mouth said interesting.
Exactly.
It's I find it interesting that you would say that aloud. Is really what the rest of that bit is.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Aaron W. That is interesting, Kyle.
I said that's cool last second.
Aaron W. has an interesting email. They say, I just beat Chrono Trigger a few days ago, And I think it might be one of my favorite games of all time. I've been playing RPGs for over 25 years and somehow never ended up playing Chrono Trigger. I'm so glad I finally played it. Have you ever went back to a classic game that you somehow missed and walked away absolutely in love with it? By the way, I'm listening to The Deepest Dive on Chrono Trigger right now, and I'm loving it. Hell yeah, go back and listen to that. It's on YouTube. It's in that bonus podcast feed. It's a good time. For me, it was Yoshi's Island. I didn't play until college, and I was just like, I'm not crazy about like the 2D Marios. I'll check this out. And it's like, oh, it is by far my favorite 2D Nintendo game. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah,
that's a good one. I've been trying to approach games like this ever since I kind of came onto MinnMax, because I always kind of feel like, oh, maybe classic game, not really so much with classic games, but I always just kind of feel like I have a really big blind spot. Let's fill it. And I just go and play all those things. And a lot of times I don't love them that much, and I just won't talk about them on the podcast. But then when I do love something like Remedy or whatever, that's like I've just become obsessed and it's all I talk about. It's so satisfying. Then it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with like, I found this. It's kind of like, it's so old it became buried treasure and then you found it again kind of thing. That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. For me, it's not, I feel like people will be upset that I'm calling this game old, but it did come out almost 20 years ago at this point. The Legend of Zelda, the Minish Cap. I played that for the first time only a few years ago. It was so incredible. I'm like, wow, Zelda good. Like it was, I really, really loved it. Found it very charming. It was just an incredible experience. I think I played it via, I feel like it's on the Switch Online at this point.
I replayed it when it came to Switch Online as well. Minish Cap's like, I'd have to like think about it, but top 5 for me, maybe.
I've really never played Minish Cap. I need to play that.
I really liked it. If you're into that style of Zelda, I feel like, I don't even think I had any notes on the game. It's like so good.
Yeah.
But for a while I was trying to go through all of the like old hits. I do want to get back to this. I just kind of got tired with other stuff, but I was going through people's top 100 lists and then just picking out games and trying to see like, oh, what's here and does it still like hold up and what do I think about it? Same as you, Haley, just trying to, fill those gaps and build up a bit more familiarity with older stuff. Because it comes back a lot. There's a lot of remakes, a lot of old continuations. So like, I hate getting burned on something. I'm like, I had forever to catch this up. And I'm like, I didn't think it'd be relevant. And now you called on me and I didn't do the reading.
That is what it feels like.
Yeah. Graham Jones is wondering, hey, I was listening to your interview with Shuhei Yoshida this week and appreciated the breadth of knowledge you have on gaming history, even if it was before your time in the gaming industry. Had me wondering, what is your history with learning game history? Did you all learn a lot as a kid, or did you pick a lot of it up once you started working in games media? Was there a particular studio, piece of software game that started this passion for gaming history besides Psych Odyssey? It's a good question for everybody because, I'm weird with games in a lot of ways where, I just played Apple II and Game Gear up until the launch of the PlayStation. And so like PlayStation was my first console. And so for me, that just feels like I got in late to the whole gaming thing. Like I didn't have a Nintendo, I didn't have Super Nintendo. And then it was just like crash course trying to play as many of those games as possible. But I still feel a little bit like, I don't know my gaming history because I didn't grow up with these consoles until PlayStation,
That's like crazy to hear you say that, where in my brain you're like, know everything about games.
Yeah,
and I'm trying to get that point.
It's frantically trying to fill that gap. So yeah, it was, working Game Informer definitely helped. Whenever somebody would reference something, I don't know, you just being in that environment, you learn a lot. And then just listening to way too much, podcasts about video games and interviews with developers, you just learn a lot. And like the Video Game History Hour podcast that Kelsey used to be on, it took a break and now it's back. And that's just a great avenue for diving in for like hour-long lessons on gaming history. And even if you think you know gaming history, if you just, listen to a good podcast about it, you can learn so much. Like I still have so many holes of like early Sega I feel like I'm really fuzzy on. There's so many pockets that just it's nice to get a refresher now and again. So yeah, I still feel insecure with my gaming history knowledge for sure. But where are y'all at? Did you scramble to learn gaming history at some point?
I will say it's a lot easier to retain things when you podcast about them. Because pre-MinnMax, I always struggled to be like, oh, it's that game from the trailer from 2 years ago. And I'm like, what are we talking? Even though I would have seen that trailer, I just didn't retain it. I don't know. But then it's almost kind of like when you're studying for a test and you say the words out loud instead of just reading them. It's like you just remember things better. And plus you'll have more anecdotes in your head. It's like, the altars. Leo was excited for that when I was in that stream with him once. Like, I don't know. It just helps me retain things. That's not so much history. That's more just like, I don't know. It's so hard to go back really, really far to fill in every single gap. So kind of what I've been trying to do is do more of like the modern stuff to fill in modern gaps. So at least like when new things come out, it's, they're not making Chrono Trigger 2 or anything. So I'm a little bit safe with that. Or is there a Chrono Trigger 2? Look, I'm about to get so humbled.
Kind of.
I've done the deepest dive on it.
It's the Radical Dreamers, I guess, which was a different thing for the Satellaview, which then eventually was brought over in the remastered version, and they kind of reimagined it for Chrono
Cross. A lot of nouns
Cross.
at me. I don't know what's going on.
But I'm just trying to like one time I just played all the Uncharted games because I was like, I bet knowing Naughty Dog will be pertinent to the future because Naughty Dog is a studio actively making new things all the time, and I want to know their history to play the next Naughty Dog game. And then The Last of Us came out, and I was like, I know Naughty Dog. You know what I mean? I'm trying to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I did grow up with it to a certain degree because like when you're young, at least I think this is the sort of standard experience. It's like you don't get a lot of games, right? Like maybe you get, at least for me, I would get 1 or 2 games like for Christmas or birthday. But I had like a subscription to Nintendo Power and like EGM, and I read those magazines obsessively because they were these portals, these views into things I desperately wanted to experience, but just couldn't. You know, like I remember reading and looking at screenshots and being like, wow, that looks amazing. I mean, I'll never get to play it, but like at least I can read about it. And, and then I like now my brain is filled with these like fuzzy anecdotes that I was like, I think I read about that when I was like in study hall in high school, just reading EGM cover to cover, because I had nothing better to do.
I'm so jealous of you. Like
my stuff comes from.
I feel so dumb also because I didn't have a single subscription to a video game magazine growing up my entire life. I just felt like, God, I would have devoured those things. I would have somehow been more obsessed with video games.
I don't know why my parents were like, they signed me up for that. I don't know why. I guess it was like, well, he's reading it. And, it's like, let's get him this book that comes in.
They want you to read. Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. But I would cover to cover. I would read previews and reviews for games. Sports games, stuff I didn't care about at all. Like I would just read it all.
Yeah, I also read a bunch of game magazines, EGM, some Game Informer, and I think there's one other one that was big at the time that I'm missing. I feel like EGM was my main magazine, but I feel like I don't know almost anything about gaming history. It's tough to. It is tough to. There are so many angles to I think approach learning about video games. It is tough to do everything at once. So I think that's something I just haven't really like poured the time into being like, I'm going to almost make a pseudo course for myself, read through these books and whatever. It's a lot of just like re-Googling, rereading, double checking to make sure you don't mess it up, because the last thing you want to do is, because you look dumb and ill-informed. So it's like, okay, who is this and what year did this come out? And that's one reason that like, sometimes people ask like, what are you guys like looking up when like you're, podcasting? It's like, oh, I'm checking like, like I have Minish Cap pulled up right now. I'm like, oh, what year it came out? Whatever, mentioning like, the franchise stuff, like I'm just always re-looking at stuff, but I feel like I don't necessarily have things perfectly retained. Yeah. And if I do, I'm always double checking them anyway. Because I'm like, well, let me just really make sure that I have like this part right.
Minish Cap, 2003?
Little stuff. 4.
Oh, see, look at me.
I remember 2004.
Oh, if I had that subscription to Nintendo Power, I would have known that. Also,
it takes a village to do a podcast. That's also part of, I think, what you see happen in real time, where it'd be like, oh, what's this? And it's someone's looking it up, and it's because there's a lot to, I think, retain to have to tell the full story of like what a game is or what the lead up for a release of something is.
Man, I finally watched last week's New Show Plus, where it was Jeff and Leo and Kelsey going through the Video Game History.
Oh, that was great.
Foundation, like archives and stuff. We all know Kelsey's smart, but like seeing her in that environment where Jeff and Leo are like, what is this? What is this referencing? And
Kelsey's a genius.
Genuine genius. Like, go watch that New Show Plus and tell me. It's ridiculous.
There's an email in here about a van exploding. Scroll down. Yeah. I'm like, how do you know that? She goes 2 more down. They explain it's just some criminals.
And Kelsey would say, I'm not a genius. I just looked at a lot of stuff for a while. But like, yeah, Kelsey's very too humble to ever like admit how good she is at everything.
It's absurd.
Like, Kelsey is one of the smartest, like most capable people I've ever.
And there's like references to like somebody referenced like, oh, there's some obscure video game magazine that lasted for 8 months, and she's like, oh, it's pretty good. I think in the 4th issue of this, they cover this. Like, how? I've never even heard of this as a concept. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
To be around her.
I'm not gonna catch Kelsey. It's like there's no point. You know what I mean? It's like there's certain people where it's like, I'll be like in the back on the bench if I'm lucky to like what Kelsey has going on, but it's like I'm there to witness, and that's almost like knowing something. Maybe someone will kind of
we kind of know her.
Sponge off.
Yeah.
Kind of just through osmosis. Like maybe Kelsey will say something and I'll retain it, and that's kind of the best I can hope to do.
All right, Dill Pickles has a game, and I want us to take this very seriously.
Pickles Toys.
Don't half-ass this. We need to be completely serious. Dill Pickles says, "Howdy, MinnMax. I have a challenge for y'all. Can you each name a game that exactly one of your cohorts has ever heard of? No more, no less. We each have to name a game where only one other person on this call has ever heard of it. That is the challenge. Just one. I'm feeling very confident. I would put $20 on the table for this.
So
But are you putting $20 on the table for it?
Yeah, where does the money go if I lose? To Janet?
Yeah, just I think it's only fair.
Okay, Janet. Okay, but you give me $20 if only one person's heard of this.
And how do we prove that?
Oh, never mind. I'm out.
Does anyone want to take this bet with me?
No, but I do want to play the game.
That's like egg money. I can't do that.
Okay.
I can't be risking it. But I do want to play. Yeah.
All right, Kyle, take it away.
So I'm throwing out a game that one person might know.
That only one other person knows. I assume you know it, and then one additional person. The
Legend of Kyrandia.
Never heard of it.
What the hell is that?
Never heard of it?
Zero.
Point and click adventure game.
You expected me to know Legend of Kyrandia?
I don't know.
Who did you think would know that?
You?
What's wrong with you? I don't know Legend of Kyrandia. Why would you put me on the spot like that?
You look like you know Legend of Kyrandia.
Hey, if you ever say that again, Janet, we got a problem here.
Janet, you know Legend of Kyrandia, right?
I don't. But if you pay me $10, I
can.
can.
With me on this. I could see you Googling.
Just
go ahead and start explaining what it is.
No. I'm looking for what song I'm gonna name for y'all because it's a tall order.
This is tough.
That's tough.
No, it was an old point. It's funny. I never played Monkey Island or any Double Fine adventure games, but for whatever reason, the way these things worked back then, like Legend of Kyrandia ended up at my house, and it's a point and click fantasy adventure game that my brother and I played. There were 3 of them. There were 2 sequels.
It's a great name for you if you ever want to change it.
I think I have one.
Okay.
I'm aiming for Janet here. I think I'm gonna snipe shot Janet and not you two. Dream Life.
I'm sorry. I don't got it. I don't got it.
What is Dream
You know
Life?
what's funny, Haley, though? I'm also aiming for you.
DS game?
No, it was a plug and play TV game where you're a teenage girl in high school and you make decisions with the little plug and play remote.
No, that looks cool though. Now I never had the plug and plays.
Darn it.
Okay.
Do plug and plays count?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Peak gaming, some would
How
say.
that's that is so offensive.
Yeah.
That's all I could get my little
Carl, how dare you?
grubby hands on back in the day.
Why didn't you just pull Legend of Kyrandia off the shelf and never question why that ended up in your house?
When you only get like 2 games a year, Kyle, Legends of Kyrandia is not making it to the cut. I'm afraid to say.
That sounds like a game you made up for yourself, Legends of Kyle Randia.
All right. World of Horror.
Is this a Goosebumps game?
No.
It came out like 2 years ago. It's a Ysbryd game. I was hoping Haley might know it because I know you're in the indie scene a lot, so maybe I thought you might have.
No. Has everybody failed at this?
I have another one. I'm going to try to get Ben.
Okay, but hang on. I get my chance.
You go first.
The game that one other person has heard of, and I'm not even going to say which person it'll be.
Yep.
Uniracers.
Of course.
Janet, do you know the Uniracers?
No, but I've heard you say it before. I wouldn't say I know it.
Okay, are we counting that? Judges. Janet has heard me say Uniracers before. I think I'll give myself that point. I'll give myself that point.
I think you can take it.
Okay,
I think you can take it, but it looks the box looks weirdly familiar because it kind of looks like a lot of N64 games.
Well,
so
it's Super Nintendo.
SNES,
game,
but yeah.
And it was like on the back. It was often like featured on the back of the Super Nintendo. Like you could see Unirace was advertised there, and I always was really fascinated by it. And when I finally played it, because I got a ROM and an emulator to play it because I'd always seen it on the back of boxes. I actually found it kind of weird and creepy because you're a sentient unicycle in this bizarre world. I don't know. It's scary and lonely in a way. It was not an emotion I expected to get from Unirace.
Oh wow!
I think you're just in a weird mood. It's just a fun game, Kyle.
Maybe.
But you're in a weird mood.
The weird thing about Uniracers is they pulled it from the shelves because they were sued by Pixar because it was inspired by Red's Dream, the Pixar short of the little unicycle.
Whoa, I did not know that.
I'm pretty sure. I don't think, if I know my gaming history.
You think you don't know game history? What are you talking about?
I think that's the story of Uniracers.
there was a unicycle lawsuit. Like, what the hell?
Like Uniracers, I was so fascinated by it because like you're stuck in these like loops.
Yeah.
And I was like, where are you? Are you like in prison? Like, what is this place?
What is going on?
Kyle,
weird.
Did this unicycle's parents abandon them and beat them?
Why is everything so deep for you?
What are you
Like we said,
talking about?
Donkey Country could be a real place. Like what's going on?
Leo said it could be a real place, but I did agree with him.
Real quick though, if you like Uniracers, this looks a lot like Future Grind, which came out in 2016. I love this game. It's really fun, kind of a momentum, light physicsy, like racing kind of thing. But it looks like Future Grind looks like they remade Uniracers.
Yes, they did. Totally. Yep.
It's great. It's a great game. I really enjoy it.
Kyle, have you heard of that game that Janet just said? Because if you had, then she just won the game. Because I haven't heard of that, and Ben hadn't.
I haven't.
Darn it!
Damn, y'all
Sorry,
sleeping
Janet.
on Future Grind.
All right, Haley, do you want to take another shot? Even though clearly you all lost? Yeah?
Twin Sins Odyssey.
No.
You made that.
Damn it!
Get the hell out of here.
No, it's
so
like
tough.
It's
the hell out
the
of here.
first video game I remember playing. I remember sitting on my dad's lap while we were sitting at our old PC in the basement, and he was playing Twin Sins Odyssey. It is the weirdest old PC game. It just seemed like a weird game that you'd be like, oh yeah, Twin Sins Odyssey, there was a lawsuit about his hat or something.
John Pra writes
This game looks scary.
Yeah,
it's really kind of spooky looking now.
How about this? One more, Ben.
Yeah.
I'm aiming at you. Never Dead.
Yeah.
Whoa, you said I'm aiming at you and then his light,
My light just
changed crazy.
exploded.
That was weird.
I got your back on Never Dead. Yeah, the claymation thingy. I feel like it came up.
No, it was like a Xbox 360 game where your like limbs and stuff would come off.
Neverhood is what I'm
fun.
thinking of, right? That's the claymation one?
Yeah, Neverhood.
Oh,
Neverhood,
stupid.
I'll throw at you too. Neverhood?
I know Neverhood.
I've never heard of Neverhood.
You never heard of that?
I never heard of it. Neverhood. Oh,
You guys
God.
cheated by being older, I think.
Yeah. No, Never Dead is because it's a game that I don't think anyone's heard of, but I remember it being reviewed at the Game Informer office and just hearing just angry shouts coming from Matt Helgeson's office about how first to have to review this awful game.
Perfect. So John Pra writes in, they say, hey, during one of the reactions to South of Midnight, Hansen commented on the name of the enemies, claiming that the name of the enemies was unforgettable. Pop quiz, do you remember what they call the creatures in South of Midnight? I did not. Janet,
is it Tides of Annihilation?
It's Tides of Annihilation. No.
I don't remember what they were
Janet,
called.
as somebody who has played South of Midnight, do you remember what they call the enemies in South of Midnight?
I literally just wrote this preview, so I really hope I know. I want to say haunts.
Close.
I know.
It's Haints. We're looking for Haints.
Oh, because it sounded
Okay,
like
but I did write it
something
correctly.
else.
Again, I'm always double checking. It's written correctly in my preview, but yeah, I could
The
not.
New Orleans
land it.
Haints. Real quick, Janet, what is it like to play South of Midnight? How does it feel in your hands?
I really like it. I think the combat is unfortunately a little bit the weakest part. It's like arena style. I think they're going for a little too demanding on the player with not enough tightness to support the demands, in my opinion. Like the cooldowns are a little aggressive, where they're like, we really want you to be thoughtful, and I'm like, yeah, but you don't got the tightness to, I think, pull that off. You know, you need kind of like a quicker strafe, like a more parry option. Like, you know, you need to be a little bit more mobile, I think, to pull off making you a little bit less powerful.
So it
I
just
do
kind
wish
of
that
feels like
stuff was a little.
Yeah, it's like a stylish action game where you just don't feel like you have all the tools to keep it active and interesting. Like, that's the idea?
The tools are good, but the cooldowns are too heavy. Like, one of the cooldowns is like 30 seconds. I was like, that's a long cooldown on it when you're fighting. But again, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't like as... It's like it's dope for a second, and then you kind of have to back off. I wish it was a little bit snappier.
Sure.
I love the exploration though. Like, Kyle, you're someone that you're a platformer boy. I think you're going to enjoy like jumping around in this game. It's not super large because it is quite linear, but it gives you that good juice of, okay, let me go down that one path I can go down that's extra, jump up a little bit, glide over. The glide feels great in this game. It's like kind of like a wispy turbine thing instead of a glider, which I think is great because it helps keep that momentum, that like zippiness that you want in a 3D platformer. So, and the world construction's phenomenal. I think the story is really affecting. The music's incredible. So yeah, again, a little weak on the combat, but it's nothing that is detracting my excitement for it. I just wish that I wish that part was better, because then I would be like, oh, this is going to be great. And instead I'm like, I think this is definitely going to be good. Will it be great? I don't know yet, but I'm very excited for it. Like, I played it, the time flew by. I just wanted to play more of it. So yeah, I really liked it.
That's cool. Yeah, it's coming out April, I do believe. Let me look it up again real quick. Yeah, April 8th for South of Midnight there.
We're almost on the first quarter. That's crazy.
No.
Halfway through it, at least.
I know.
Already making mistakes for the 210s early on. I can feel it. I can feel myself slipping. I'm losing control.
I know.
Rhino Gogo writes in and says, "Howdy, cohorts. I love cheese. I'm a huge fan of goat cheese, and it got me thinking, why aren't there more mammal cheeses? Is there a mammal that you wouldn't try their cheese? Would you have cat cheese, dog cheese? Would you eat human cheese pizza?
Hell no, I would not eat human cheese pizza.
What if everyone in LA?
I'm upset that you asked.
What if everyone in LA?
I went from so excited to hating this question in like 1 second.
Sorry, it just looks like you're excited about human cheese pizza. But what if like LA, there's a restaurant, it's like this won the Michelin a bazillion star competition, and it's human cheese pizza, and it's creme de la creme. Everybody, Taylor and Kelsey are there.
No. Because
human cheese could be the only thing that vegans could eat because there could be consent involved.
That's exactly right.
That is a fun fact.
You hated that fact. Shannon,
I like the fact. I would never lie about your facts. How dare you? How dare you? I said it was fun. I did not say it was interesting. LA, again, I've said this many times. I love LA. LA does a lot of things at top tier. Right. We do pizza. We're in California in general. The pizza here is terrible.
Because it's not human cheese pizza. Terrible. That's what we're saying, Janet. So get that human in there.
Ben, no. If anyone's going to pull off human cheese pizza, it's not going to be LA. Like, it's y'all. It's going to be y'all's bad. All the pizza here is so bad. And if you're listening to this and you come to California, do not eat our pizza. Literally don't eat it. I don't know I'm sure some people will find that more compelling. It's bad. The best pizza here is like one of the worst pizzas you can have in the Midwest.
You're so out of your mind.
It is so bad.
You're a lunatic. Imagine though.
Tell me SGF pizza was not nasty. You can't.
Every pizza.
You said there's no.
I've had like one slightly disappointing pizza in my entire life. Now,
Ben,
if it was like deep dish Chicago style pizza and someone was pulling the cheesy slice up and then someone said it's human cheese, that might be a bad pizza. I don't think I'd want that.
Someone in New York made human cheese. Someone in New York made human cheese.
Get them. Share their address.
And they got shut down, I think, pretty quickly.
Miriam Simoon, an art graduate from New York, crafted breast milk cheese by using the milk of 3 mothers.
That's a weird sentence.
Some people are loving it, and some are gagging, Miriam said.
Well, is it an art piece, though, or is it a food?
I think it was an art piece, but the cheese was made and consumed. It was made and consumed.
This is grossing me out. I don't care for this question at all.
But I was just Googling it. There's donkey cheese, there's yak cheese, there's reindeer cheese.
Really?
There's all these, and they're 10 times more expensive. It says here for a pound of donkey cheese.
You ever tried to milk a reindeer?
$1,000 for a pound of donkey cheese.
New show plus. Let's expense.
Guy Fieri would love donkey cheese.
Oh, he would.
We should tell him. It can go with his donkey sauce.
That's such a good insult, is to call somebody's brain a pound of donkey cheese in there.
But then that means it's valuable.
Yeah, your brain is as good as gold. Caffeine Dad wrote in. Caffeine Dad says, "Hey, sorry for being such a fake MinnMax fan, but I'd never seen a rapid fire interview until the Avowed one, and it was so fun and charming. I mean this in the best way, but the format really reminds me of Vogue's questions videos where they walk and talk with the person they're interviewing. I always like those interviews. They're weird. They feel off, but I hear it. I like it too." Caffeine Dad says, "Did this format take inspiration from theirs?" I don't think so, but I'd probably seen them at that point when we came up with it in like 2014 or whatever. Are there any interview formats you wish you had come up with, are envious of, or just otherwise want to try out? I'm asking because I love the Hot Ones interviews y'all did for New Show Plus a while back. Caffeine Dad, it's funny you bring this up. Stay tuned. There is an interview format that I remember talking to Kyle at least about like, God, I'm so pissed. Why didn't we do this back at Game Informer? It's so obvious. And maybe we found a way to do it. So stay tuned, I'd say, till, I don't know, February 24th on MinnMax's YouTube channel, and you might see exactly what we're going for there.
I don't know if it's like an interview format, but like I was listening to David Sims of Blank Check fame talk about his M. Night Shyamalan piece that he did recently for The Atlantic. And it was like he went and hung out with M. Night Shyamalan like for the day. Like just he was doing his thing. I think he was editing Trap at the time. And he was just hung out with him all day and asked him questions and like Blake Hester has pulled that format off occasionally.
Yeah.
But like I always wanted to try to do that with like Miyamoto. you know? And like, I certainly pitched that to Nintendo, and it was always like,
are you kidding?
Like, no, I can't do that. And, you know, like it was like, but you gotta at least try, you know? So I would like to just like spend a day with Kojima, or just spend a day with Miyamoto, and just like, not even like necessarily like set aside time for like, now's the hour where I ask you a bunch of questions. I just want to be there and just have an ongoing conversation throughout the day.
Can you lower your expectations and heights a little bit from Kojima and Miyamoto? If you find just an indie developer, why don't you just go follow them around for a day? Why don't you go stock some indie devs?
Something like that.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. There's this game called, what is it called? This is going to be a joke, but then I generally forget.
The Legend of Kyrandi.
No, what's the freaking game you're working on?
Tides of Annihilation.
No, Undermine. Why'd you do it with the Undermine 2 developers?
I mean, I guess I could. I mean, they don't have an office, really. I mean, I do kind of do that. I talk to them like multiple times a week.
Well, there you go. There's your Miyamoto.
That's the thing with the remote work life. It's like, are you going to go with them to pick up their kid at daycare and like all those awkward you know, I guess. It might be a little awkward.
Just the extended profile, yeah. Elias Armandariz, they say, how many games do you... I mean, I feel like I kind of did that, like the MinnMax Spotlight, I feel like it's pretty close to that. Like,
yeah, I really
like
enjoyed that. Yeah, that is close. I mean, it's not even close. That's what it is. You just went and like hung out and like, that's great.
Yeah. Pet his dogs for a while. Elias Armandariz writes and says, how many games do y'all play but not necessarily finish in a year? I just finished the most anticipated games episode, and you still put out the most random games that you played but never mentioned before. As a part-time gamer, there are times I wish I could play more. I hear you, part-time gamer. I keep track of every game I start, and last year I started 127 games. Wow. So it's and that I think it's typically around like 140 or so per year.
I think maybe like if I had to ballpark it, I'd say like every third or fourth game I beat.
Wow,
maybe.
That's pretty good.
I think maybe that might the number might not be right, but I feel like
what's the total number?
Oh, I don't know. I don't keep track of it that way.
Like,
I have a document of every game I've ever. 10, you know? I have a document of every game I've ever beaten, but I don't organize it by year. I just like having a big, huge list. How
long's the list right now?
I mean, I'd have to
pull it up while we.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, no, I'm super curious.
I love backlog.
Yeah, I have a backlog.
You don't want to be with us. It's okay. It's all right. He's
all
like,
right.
The problem,
I have one, you're not on there.
The problem, Haley, is like if I sign up for that, like I'll have a number here in a second as we're talking, but like I have to log like maybe 1,000 games that I.
No, you don't. You can just start now.
Just start fresh. That's what I did. Yeah. I started my accounts from.
Then I'm ignoring the list that I've had since like 2006.
I guess.
You know what? I changed my mind. I don't want you on there.
Yeah, get out. You're not worthy.
I'm on there. I've got an account. It's happening.
I rescind. I'm going to block you on there. I don't even know if you can do that on that platform. I don't keep track of all the games I play explicitly, unfortunately. I plan to do that this year because I've always been curious. But I'd imagine it's at least like 100 or more because every Friday I play minimum 1 new game, maximum like 3. Now I miss a couple Fridays here and there. But also I play some stuff in between as well. So just doing some napkin math. The weeks in the year.
Yeah.
Times it by 2. That seems pretty safe. Like 100-ish.
Yeah, this is about right.
Yeah, I played 64 games last year, and that's like finished them / if they're a multiplayer game, played them for enough that I feel valid in saying, I played this, I know what happens in it. But then I have like about 30 that I picked up and didn't finish. Like Pacific Drive, I always meant to go back and finish. Age of Mythology that I played with you, Ben. I feel like I played some of that, but not enough that I feel like I beat it or played it enough. Prince of Persia, Pepper Grinder, the Ace Attorney trilogy release, like all those kind of weird ones. Plucky Squire is also one I never finished. It's like I could go back and I don't know. I have such a purist mind when it comes to I beat a game. I need to like if it's a narrative game, I need to be done it and see credits. And then if it's like a multiplayer game, usually like 5-ish hours, and then I've beat the multiplayer game. But then, like, I have, UFO 50 on here, and I didn't beat all those, but I played every one of the 50. There's always, like, kind of weird.
Yeah.
You just have to have your own thing. Like, I have a lot of idle games on here now because me and Leah were playing a ton of idle games. It's like, did I beat those? No. I just clicked buttons until I was like, I get it. I'm done. Move on to the next one. Yeah.
Luke Freer says, hello, dear.
Real quick, game list is about 560 games.
Okay. Wow. That's nice. That's cool.
What's the first
game from that list that you beat?
The first one is Aladdin for the Super Nintendo is the first game on that list.
And the best is...
That's the best one too, right?
The best one. They nailed it right at the beginning. Not the Genesis one. The Super Nintendo.
Gentlemen. They say, hello, dear MinnMax. I'm an elementary school teacher, this Luke Freer, and during class eating team. What does that mean? Instead of the usual Bluey episodes, I'd educate the children on some classic video games. Due to the popularity of Shadow the Hedgehog lately, I hopped on YouTube, and to my delight, I found a 90-minute edit of Sonic Adventure 2. This video is fantastic. Not only covered the entire story, it stitched in gameplay to give the scenes more context. This has been the students' favorite thing to watch, and they're now spending their lunchtime pretending to be Rogue the Bat. Rouge the Bat? Rogue the Bat?
Rouge.
It's Rouge.
Oh, all right, sorry. Is there a video game out there with a no commentary let's play you think would be fantastic for kids to watch in school like this? The students are yearning for more.
If they're not going to get bored, like old Sierra games would be cool.
Oh, they'd get so bored watching
They would.
Police Quest.
They wouldn't, because that would be cool. What? I mean, it's like they get to see how the puzzles get figured out and stuff. That'd be kind of fun. Yeah. But they get bored. Maybe Telltale? No. That's too much text.
They're young, right?
Yeah, what do you got?
Yeah. You can't show them Telltale. It's
they're
like you
like a snack time. It's pretty young.
I'm assuming that the audio is very low and it's like they have the closed captioning on or
maybe
subtitles on. Is that the vibe?
Maybe. Could be.
I kind of took this as almost like background. I didn't really think of them actually like actively watching it as though they're watching like a film. And I was like, I think it would be fun to put like a full playthrough of like Rhythm Heaven on in the background.
Oh, that's
for
good.
Just like the weirdest, most bizarre stuff happening every 3 minutes, you know, give or take, something like that.
That's good. Yeah. Hi-Fi Rush. It's going to be visual. Going to be interesting. If you have a little bit of music there, it'd be great. I think it's kid friendly. Like it already looks like a cartoon. Looks better than a lot of damn cartoons.
I think Sonic is such a great, that's kind of already the answer. It's like just more Sonic games. Kids would love that.
Yeah, so Sonic the Dark
Beyond
Brotherhood.
Good and Evil.
Beyond Good and Evil. That's visual. That's good.
Kingdom Hearts. Oh my god.
Don't do it. Don't do Kingdom Hearts. That's it. Warmer. Scorn. No commentary.
Scorn.
Pablo Castillo writes in and says, now 2 months into 2025 and an unprecedented run at the Grammys and being highlighted at this year's Super Bowl halftime performance, the question on everybody's lips are, has Ben Hansen finally listened to MinnMax's 2024 maximum greatest work of art of all time, Not Like Us?
How did you not listen to it yet?
I have. I listened to it right after we did that podcast recording. I bet I've heard Not Like Us 8 times since then.
Sing the rap.
Here it goes. I hope you're ready for a little rap. It goes and a 1 and a 2. No, I'm not going to do that.
I was just asking a bunch of Avowed questions. That's weird.
Yes, I like it. And
I was kind of in the same boat, actually. I wasn't really familiar with the song, just to not make you feel so bad.
No, but I've tried listening to even more beyond that. I think like was dancing around with the kid a while ago, and we're listening to Kendrick, and my wife's like, I'm having a tough time dancing to Kendrick Lamar with the kid. Like maybe there's something else that's a little more danceable for a 1.5-year-old. Like, I guess that's fair. But
it's never too early to get some rhythm.
I know. That's exactly it. Janet, thoughts on the halftime show?
Yeah, I thought it was great. It's a really strong performance. I don't know how deep I'm supposed to go into it, but yeah, I think it had a good blend of a bit of. It was symbolic, but in a very obvious way, which I think you need when you have like a mass market audience.
Yeah.
The Serena Williams poll was awesome.
That was wild.
That was so juicy.
And I actually had just recently told that story to my fiance because he wasn't familiar of when she was it the U.S. Open that she won when she crip walked the first time?
Yeah.
Like she had done that after winning, and she got a lot of criticism for it. I mean, in her career, really, she's just been chastised for being a successful Black woman in the sport.
Yeah.
For doing really over criticized. Really,
that's insane.
Yeah, and. So that was definitely like another and you'll see this a lot, unfortunately, in sports with Black athletes being criticized for their professionalism and these other things. And it's all just so having her there, it was I never would have guessed this, but at the same time, I should have seen this coming maybe. It was perfect. So I think that was, without going all the way into analyzing every aspect of it, that was probably... That might have been my favorite part of the performance. It was just so exciting and unexpected. She
dated Drake, or I saw something about Drake was pining after her, something like that. But they actually dated for a while?
Dated at some point, but I know a lot of people were like, oh, it's because it's because they're exes, and SZA I think also had some type of relationship with Drake. But I really think Serena was there for her that callback to that original Crip Walk. I don't feel like it was for really the Drake aspect of it. But yeah, that was just really cool, and then being a sport it has some fun layers if you want to pick it apart, but I think it's very easily gleamable as well. Yeah. So and shocked, a verse that we've never heard before he opened with, which I think was so bold and unexpected. I'm like, I've never even heard, like, no one's heard this before.
Yeah.
And to open, I think, was also a very bold choice. So, yeah, surprised to see more guests, but I also get it. And yeah, I think there was a lot of great stage stuff going on. It really felt like a mini album, like what you kind of get in an album from Kendrick. It's like that performance sort of kind of embodied that, where it's like disparate parts that have like a larger meaning when they're in conversation, like with each other. I
do think it's going to go down as like, maybe watching, it's like, oh, this isn't the flashiest. I want more spectacle with my Super Bowl halftime show. It's like, that's every other year. That's fine. But like, I feel like 10 years from now, people are going to be looking back like, yeah, remember when they were at least like trying to have a message with the Super Bowl halftime show? It was something, is maybe the most artistic attempt for that format that we've seen. I can't think of anything that really rivals it.
I mean, I think it's honestly like the best performance since like Beyonce. Though I think she came with Coldplay, right? She wasn't on her own for that performance, I don't think.
She had Coldplay too, yeah.
Yeah, but her section was really, really strong, which Kendrick, I think, was also there for that. Those are like the best. And 2 years ago also was a pretty strong performance.
Yeah, yeah.
No offense to Rihanna.
No offense to Rihanna.
She was pregnant at the time.
That's right. It wasn't her fault.
The most dynamic performance, but, I like her as an artist.
There we go. All right, what do y'all like for question of the week?
I really like the
first one.
The game?
Jeez.
Oh, sick, Kyle.
I also like those as well.
Come on.
I like, the recommendations question at the beginning.
Recommendations one? Yeah. I like the one, are we in the same camp, Haley, of trying to name the one game? The game that only one person knows? I like that one. Yeah. Learning game history. Janet, how you feeling?
I guess I have to go with my original one, which is still just the influence of the recommendation influence.
Recommendation one?
I can go anyway.
I can't tip these scales. I can't tip these scales.
I commit to that because it's the first thing I said, and I'm not going to be influenced by the rest of you.
All right, and you all are okay with this?
Also, we award food and games a little too often, even though they're always fun. What can I say? I'm a simple person. I enjoy a game. I enjoy food.
All right, Travis and Fargo, congratulations. You won the World of Warcraft. I'm sorry, not that. You won the Super Mario Brothers movie vinyl soundtrack thanks to I'm 8-Bit. And now it's time for something that we prefer to call Get a Load of This. Okay, get a load of this. My parents are in Arizona, and they were hiking, and there's a sign like, watch for wildlife. And on the sign, it said, watch out for the Arizona jaguar. And they're telling me about this. I'm like, there's no way there's jaguars in Arizona. Turns out there are the rare jaguars in Arizona. Like in the last 30 years, 7 jaguars have been seen in Arizona. Which is funny.
A zoo mishap situation?
No. Like they're in Mexico and they can just like work their way up apparently. And apparently there are
by their bootstraps.
That's right, with a good, honest work ethic. But there's been super rare jaguars in Arizona. I never would have thunk it.
That's cool.
Wow, what the heck? And are they alive? Or did they encounter them? They're okay?
My parents have both been eaten by jaguars over the last week.
That's how you tell us.
I was hoping you would
get a load of this.
Yeah. Get a lot of this. 2 old people eaten by jaguars, consumed to the bone. All right, well, somebody else go.
Get a load of this. I mentioned it earlier, but as we were podcasting, I did find footage of the Shinobi fight where he fights. He fully fights Batman and Superman in the Genesis game.
I need to see this.
So there's a link in the description.
Does it have the names? What they called those bosses?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure if it does in the video, but you can at least see them. That it is fully Spider-Man. Like they're not even like.
Love it.
That's amazing.
Love it.
Get a load of this. I remember this. I learned this term before, but I forgot it. The concept of knolling. Do you guys know what this word means?
No.
Begin with a K.
Yes. So I remembered hearing it for the first time through like the Lego community, like building Lego pieces, where it's like you take all the 4 squares and you put them together, and you take all the long ones and you put them together. But that's basically, it's like laying out everything and organizing stuff. Ooh. And it is like the most visually appealing thing ever to me. And I realized I've seen this before. I just didn't realize it had a name. I see it often for like a what's in my bag. Like if people would do it via like an Instagram carousel or something like that, it's like they'd put out the pictures of the objects. But yeah, r/knolling on Reddit, like it's just nothing but a community that looks at these things. And they're just so visually satisfying. And I'm like, I need to do this with more items in my life and then just post it on the internet because it looks so cool. And you can do it with like anything. Like people use it a lot for like hiking. But yeah, it's big on like what's in my bag and all that. But I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to look at this forever because it's so satisfying.
And how do you spell this word?
KNOLLING.
I am joining the 143,000 Knowlers.
Perfect. Check out the links
below. Of which 21
below.
are currently online.
Perfect. All right.
Oh, it's all color vibes.
Yeah, some people color code them. Yeah,
that's good.
Oh, I like this. I am such a person that like you can almost kind of sense like where something should be. Do you know what I mean? It's like when you have
a little
everything
to the left vibes.
Yeah, a little to the left vibe. It's like, oh, that looks fine there, but if we put it over, like when I'm doing like a layout for like a Twitch stream or something, it's like, oh, it would look so much better if it was in the bottom right because that's just where it should go. I don't know. I'm just a nerd for that kind of thing. And that's exactly what this is. I see. Knolled my fruit bowl. Someone said a day ago, and it's just all the fruit laid out real nice.
That's horrifying.
Come on, we can't say that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's not appropriate.
I freaking knolled my fruit bowl.
You got one, Haley?
Wow. I do. Sorry. I'm just looking at Knoll things now. Get a load of this. Overwatch is back, baby.
Did it leave?
Oh,
congratulations.
Did it
did in fact leave for a little bit. So today, unfortunately it was today because there was a state of play and other things going on, but they did an Overwatch 2 spotlight. I love the energy of this. It was fantastic. It's so easy to dunk on Overwatch, right?
Yep.
Overwatch is I do it myself. I'm not free of sin. I make fun of Overwatch all the time. And it's like the number one complaint is like, you guys need to try again. This is like, you can never fault them for not trying after this spotlight. I think it was so good. Listen to all the things they're doing. So the whole thing with Overwatch was they had this whole PvE thing that they promised for Overwatch 2 and it completely disappeared. They said, we're not doing it anymore. They laid off a bunch of people. I don't know. It's just like kind of been like LLL. And it looks like what they've done is take all the PvE stuff and taken all that work they did to make that cool stuff and twist it to work on a co-op multiplayer way. So they're taking all the effort they did. So now they have perks in the gameplay, which is all the PvE things that you could have gotten in like the skill tier trees if they had been able to do that. And they've put that into the competitive gameplay. So now you have like a minor perk and a major perk. So for example, if I'm Anna, I can choose my major perk could be I can now headshot people with my shot, which she normally can't land headshots. Like that's huge. Or when you have your nano boost, you can give it to somebody and it also lands on yourself too. So you'll have nano at the same time, like completely changing the way the characters work. And you pick those during gameplay. And what's so cool is it's kind of like, oh, the Winston on the enemy team is dummying me. I'll choose this perk because it completely counters that Winston. And it adds this whole other element of like flex, like scaling up gameplay that Overwatch has never had. And that was one of like 15 things they announced. So that loot boxes are coming back. Loot boxes are back.
That's a good thing?
That's a good thing. Yes, I miss loot boxes. Well, they've been so like money grabby, but loot boxes are fun. What do you mean? That's a good thing. It was so fun to open those things.
Loot boxes are bad. I just want to make my stance known. I hate what those do to your brain.
They were so fun. Hero bands are coming, which is awesome. I love that. Map voting. That game's needed map voting forever, all time. The maps in that game are crazy because it has some of my favorite maps in multiplayer history and some of my very least favorite multiplayer maps. And I just have to hope that I get a good one and not a crappy one. That's back. 6v6 is coming back. They announced 2 new heroes. They have a new stadium mode where that's like all the PvE stuff is just, I can't even explain it because then it's just going to be a segment of the podcast instead of my get a load of this. But I guess like my thought is just like, yay, I'm really happy. I think
you're excited about Overwatch for the first time in a long time.
I'm excited because I was such a Jeff Kaplan person back when he was like the head of that. I have a mug with Jeff Kaplan's face on it. Like,
okay.
I'm weird. Yes.
Yeah.
And like now I know the name of the game director, Aaron Keller, because he was so likable and excited and fun and spunky in this. Okay. Like I was like, yippee! Like I don't know. It kind of almost felt like, yay!
Putting that mug order in on Etsy right away.
Yeah, horrifying.
Yeah, someone get me an Aaron Keller mug, sure. But it's almost like they've been trying to resuscitate. They've been doing compressions for like 3 years, and it's like Overwatch is going like it really seems like they're just like, here you go, stop yelling at us, and I'm like, okay.
Links below if you want to learn more about it. Hey, in the community,
there's some Marvel rivals lining up the sniper shot, and they're like,
honestly, probably because they could have waited till next year and done their 10-year anniversary revive, right? But they're doing it right now, so
they need it for sure. But Riz in the community Discord, they shared in the community Get a Load of This channel where people share fun facts each and every day, all day, nonstop if you want that feed. But Riz posted this Blue Sky post about the developers behind Cluster Truck are confused as a small advertisement goes up for the game on a billboard in Massachusetts. The only problem is it wasn't them and they don't know who did it. They don't know who put up a billboard for their game. So there you go. That's a good.
I'm assuming they're not pursuing like IP infringement, and they're just like, yippee, free marketing.
I would hope so. And then the post about it also gets free marketing. So it's a good win-win, I suppose.
Do you think they actually did it and they're just lying about someone else?
I'd be really smart if they did.
Better Call Saul.
It'd be really smart.
Or like that OnlyFans model who was like. Anyway, maybe it's like, okay, I guess no one knows the story, but whatever,
Imagine.
I'll message you. Next week's Get a Load of This will be, I'm probably not choosing that, but I'll send it to you, Haley.
All right.
Family Friendly Show.
That is it for this episode of the MinnMax Show. Thank you so much for sticking with us, everybody, watching, sharing, listening, all that fun stuff. We have a lot of stuff. We've had a strong 2025 so far. We've been pumping out a lot of content. And in my mind, I'm like, well, we had 4 big interviews. Those are all in the can. Those are all up. So I guess we're slowing down. Then I look at the roadmap ahead. It's like, oh no, this is only speeding up. There's only exciting things on the horizon here. New Show Plus. You can watch Haley and Kelsey open a bunch of Pokemon cards. That's up on YouTube right now. We debuted a new thing with New Show Plus this week called the Charge Shot, where we gave people the option of they could vote for us to skip a week, but that means next week's New Show Plus is going to have a really big thing that we wouldn't do normally. So something going above and beyond, but giving people the option of like, if you want us to take a bigger swing for New Show Plus, you can, but you got to charge up your shot for a week, right? And so people voted for it. So next week, we're going to do something that will be the most dangerous thing MinnMax has ever done with Leo and Sarah and I. We'll see how it goes. It'll be fun. But this is a weird thing where we skipped this week for New Show Plus, but then Haley and Kelsey did that Pokemon thing anyway, so it's a confusing example, but
kind of worked out anyways.
It worked out to fill that gap, so don't be confused. But in the future, we're going to be skipping if people vote for the Charge Shot option. But the deepest dive on Onimusha Warlords, that is up, the 2 parts there. That's a super fun time with Kelsey and Michael Huber and Jacob Geller and Kyle and I. So if you want more Huber on your podcast, you can have him talking about one of his favorite games for 4 hours. That game really charmed us as a really great excuse to go back to the PS2 and play through that thing. And it's nice to feel like an expert on Onimusha 1 at this point, at least. Bonus pod. This week, it was all about idle games with Leo and Haley. And then last week's was also a banger, with Jacob Geller and Kyle talking about their favorite Studio Ghibli movies with Haley. That was a super fun episode for sure. Let's see. We have some other stuff on the horizon here. We have a new show from MinnMax debuting this coming Monday, everybody. What could it be? You tell us. Stay tuned. It is going to be a new show, I would say our biggest new show since Crossfade, maybe. Well, you can think of it as a Crossfade style show, I guess is the best cryptic tease. But it's going to be a seasonal thing, 10 episodes. Any other teases anybody wants to sprinkle out there?
I don't know. I wonder what it is.
It could be some people are working very hard to make this new thing happen. So we'll see how that goes. Speaking of which, Kelsey is really on double duty, because she also recorded something else that is going to be, I teased, debuting. Right now the plan is on the 24th on our YouTube channel, which is another show. This one's more like a one-off trial. We'll see how it goes. I don't want to put more on Kelsey's plate, but I'm excited to try this format to see if people enjoy it, because it's a format that I'm super excited about. Otherwise, thanks for the kind words about the interview with Shuhei Yoshida on our YouTube channel and in that bonus podcast feed. We had one go up on Monday this week with Ready at Dawn's co-founder, Andrea Pacino, where he is shockingly candid. Like, Ready at Dawn went down in flames last year. It was purchased by Meta and then shut down by Meta. And so he's like, I can't say anything until 2025. So like January 1st, 2025, I messaged him like, hey, can we talk about Ready at Dawn's history? He's like, yeah, I am all game. And so it's one of those interviews where he's just like, I am ready to unpack all of the stress of what it was like to actually develop the Order 1886. And like, some of his stories are pretty wild, talking about working with Sony as a publisher. And he's like, it was hell. It was just arguing about the stupidest crap all the time. They were basically blackmailing us with those payments for the Order 1886. Like, it's pretty candid take from him about what went wrong with the Order's development. the plans for a sequel with multiplayer that was rejected ultimately by Sony, and why. They're talking about, he was talking about starting a God of War on Vita after their two PSP God of War. He talks about making new IP with Ubisoft that they walked away from because Ubisoft was insisting that it star a badass man, and they're like, no, we don't. It stars a young woman. They're like, nope, sorry. So there's a ton of information in there. And again, I'm not complaining, just for a little bit of insight into supporting independent games media here. Like, that interview was picked up by IGN, Eurogamer, VentureBeat, GameSpot, VGC, DualShockers, GameRant. Like, every news site picked up parts of this interview, which was great.
How much we make, how much green we get from all that
attention. Sit back and get ready for your Lamborghini, Haley, because YouTube right now, $23 from that Ready It's On interview. So
that's enough to play some podcast bets.
That's right. That's right. We would be so hosed if not for people having that moment of, hey, I appreciate having long form developer interviews like this, or I appreciate New Show Plus. I appreciate The Deepest Dive. I appreciate these new shows that are coming out from MinnMax. And you can go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's to help support all of that content directly. And again, we will DM you a Steam code for a cool game, Cryptmaster, if you support us before the 17th, if we have below 5,700 paid supporters. You have to check for the paid supporters on the About page on the Patreon site. But I'd love to message you that Steam code for Cryptmaster if you support us. So we appreciate it. Janet, you got something you want to plug?
Yeah, I just want to plug my South of Midnight preview that I have over on my website. It's pen2pixels.com. So check it out, give it a read. I go into more detail about the different aspects of the game, what I'm looking forward to, what things I think might be a potential drawback. It's just kind of, more detailed format. And I guess while you're there, I also have my official top 10 ordered from 2024. I think it is slightly different than the top 10 I gave MinnMax. So if you only know me from here, in terms of order, I don't want to say what it is, but I'm really psyched about it. It took a long time to write out. I feel like it's like 5,000 words or something nuts, maybe more. I don't know. It took forever. I beat every game on the list except for Metaphor Fantasio, which I think is fair. That game is longer than every game on the list combined. Okay. I feel like so. Yeah. That's
cool.
It.
There's a link in the description if you want to jump to Pen to Pixels and check out Janet's whole site. That'd be sweet. Cool. That is it for this episode of the MinnMax Show. We'll be back next week, and a lot of fun stuff is going to be announced next week, so stay tuned. All right, everybody. Until next time, be good, have fun, let's go.